When we were covering Nova Online and his bizarre diaper fetish, we genuinely never thought we would come across another human being more deeply, unapologetically indulge in his kinks and fetishes. We assumed we had seen the peak. But to our utter disappointment, we did in fact stumble upon someone who has left Nova far behind when it comes to pursuing his fetishes and turning them into an entire online identity. We are talking about none other than JustinRPG. He quite literally has a kink for being shrunk down by these legendary Pokemon. If you're sitting there wondering what on earth this nonsense is, this is a song dedicated to vorophilia, written by JustinRPG and sung by Guong. Justin's entire lore revolves around his preferences. It has escalated to the point where he has repeatedly claimed online that he is married to the legendary Pokemon Reshiram. His love for Reshiram, his wife, is apparently so intense that he has written, sung, and produced multiple songs dedicated to her.
Love is love, it doesn't matter if one is a Pokemon and the other is human, as long as you love each other, love each other, love each other.
If you think this is already bizarre, just wait for what is coming next, because Justin's story is so much worse and far more nausea-inducing than we ever expected before diving into this rabbit hole. So seriously, put down whatever you're eating right now, because this video is about to get far worse than your wildest imagination. Justin's full name is Justin Michael Coolidge. He was born on the August 30th, 1985, which makes him currently 41 years old. He resides in Michigan with his mother, who is apparently a car enthusiast. As you probably gathered from the intro, Justin clearly struggles with certain mental health issues and is most likely on the autism spectrum. What we do know is that growing up, he did not attend a typical high school. Instead, he went to the Behavioral Education Center in Bangor, Michigan, which is a high school designed for students with special needs. After that, he did not pursue any further formal education. He does not have a job, and the majority of his time appears to be spent creating Pokemon-themed explicit artwork, writing on forums about his highly specific fetishes, and publicly declaring his love, in ways that are difficult to describe as anything but disturbing, for his fictional wife Reshiram, and that is essentially everything currently known about Justin Coolidge's personal life. Now, speaking of how he actually surfaced on the internet and gained attention, we have to talk about DeviantArt, the primary platform Justin joined to showcase what he clearly considered his tremendous artistic abilities. Around 2010, his peculiar artwork, which almost always involved inserting himself directly into the Pokemon universe, began receiving an unusual amount of attention within the Pokemon fan community, and eventually even outside of it. The main reason Justin gained this recognition was his intense, and at times unsettling, attachment to Pokemon characters. He didn't just play the games. He seemed to believe he was part of that universe genuinely. He constantly wrote graphic and uncomfortable stories about these characters, composed songs professing his love for them, and openly expressed his attraction toward various Pokemon. I mean, just look at some of this artwork where he casually inserts himself alongside an unsuspecting Pokemon. This last one is arguably one of Justin's most infamous images, not just because of the Pokemon sitting on his lap, but because of the strange background details. Artwork plastered across the walls, including what appears to be a random burger and a car. While Justin has, at different times, expressed his desire to be consumed by various Pokemon and even other gaming characters, including a Flame Atronach, his primary and unwavering devotion has always remained with his self-proclaimed wife, Reshiram. Reshiram, for those who don't live inside a Pokedex, is a giant white dragon-type Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Black, a fictional creature made of pixels, lore, and apparently marital potential. Justin is so obsessively attached to this poor Pokemon that he has essentially dedicated his entire life to Reshiram. He even got a tattoo of Reshiram on his arm. There are also countless pieces of artwork created by Justin where Reshiram is front and center, such as this one, where Justin is dramatically declaring his undying love for Reshiram, and this one, where he appears to be riding it. At this point, you've probably already connected the dots. Justin is not just a fan of Reshiram. He is wholeheartedly, unapologetically, deeply in love with it, so much so that he even created artwork depicting himself getting married to Reshiram. Sadly, this obsession didn't stop at graphic stories and self-insert artwork. No, that would have been too contained. It expanded. It evolved. Specifically, it extended into what can be described as Justin's music career. But before we get into that, there's something important to address. Justin very openly identifies as a vorophile, And while most people with this particular fetish tend to keep it extremely private, mainly because they understand how unsettling and difficult it is for the average person to comprehend, Justin does the exact opposite. He embraces it, publicly, loudly, and repeatedly. In fact, he indulges in this almost surreal fetish with a level of openness that we rarely see. And one of the clearest examples of that is the music he has created. Songs dedicated not just to Reshiram, but to countless other Pokemon characters as well. We've got to warn you, we are officially entering dangerous territory now, because Justin's songs are not for the faint of heart. What we're about to play is probably one of the most infamous tracks ever produced by JustinRPG, and it's titled I Love Reshiram Married to Reshiram.
I love Reshiram. I love Reshiram. I am married to Reshiram. Reshiram, I love. Marriage is strong. Reshiram and Justin, together forever. Together forever. Together forever.
This song is arguably one of the main reasons Justin became cemented in internet meme history. It gave the world a phrase no one asked for, love each other. Yes, the term love each other literally went viral, because in the song, the way Justin pronounces love each other sounds exactly like love each other, and once the internet heard it, there was no going back. You want to hear it again?
As long as you love each other, 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 love each other. Sing with me.
This phrase became so absurdly popular that people started selling stickers and merchandise of it on Redbubble. And believe it or not, this is not the only song Justin has written and published. He has produced multiple, and we do mean multiple, tracks dedicated to his fictional universe. Here's another one where he sets out to rescue his wife while riding on the back of Moltres, another fire-breathing Pokemon.
My wife Reshiram was captured by a team who was capturing legendary Pokemon. I need to go save her. Let's go, Moltres! Let's go save my wife, Reshiram! I will ride you, Moltres. Let's go save my wife, Reshiram. I will ride Moltres. I am going to save my wife, Reshiram. I don't know what this team does with all these legendary Pokemon, but I need to save my wife, so I'm riding Moltres. I'm gonna ride Moltres to save my wife. I'm saving my wife, Reshiram.
Later on, you'll find out that Justin doesn't just take help from Moltres casually. He has a thing for Moltres as well. In fact, he produced a song titled Moltres and I Are So Close, where he repeatedly mentions that he has been riding Moltres since the year 2000.
Riding Moltres since December 2000. Riding Moltres since December 2000. Riding Moltres since December 2000. Riding Moltres, riding Moltres, riding Moltres.
Unfortunately, many other Pokemon have made surprise appearances in Justin's musical catalog. One of them is Zekrom, another dragon-type Pokemon. In a song titled Reshiram and Zekrom Are the Best, Justin openly states that he would consider Zekrom his best man if he were ever to actually marry Reshiram.
Reshiram has pretty eyes. Zekrom has the badass spirits. It could be a bodyguard, both together at once. I love Reshiram and I love Reshiram. I love Zekrom too. If I were to marry Reshiram, Zekrom would be my best friend. I love Reshiram and Zekrom too.
So you see what's happening here. He isn't just referencing the Pokemon world, he is fully living inside it. But here's the thing, our guy Justin is not dumb. He acknowledged how risky and dangerous it would be to be married to a legendary Pokemon. He even wrote a song addressing how people warn him that Reshiram could easily. Yet despite all the warnings and what he frames as social constructs, he remains convinced that his beloved wife would never harm him, because according to him, she is deeply overprotective.
I'm married to Reshiram. Reshiram's a powerful legendary. So strong she could kill you with one of her attacks, even her weakest. Anyway, 70% of Pokemon can, but I'm married to Reshiram anyway. Reshiram, I'm married to Reshiram. Reshiram is so powerful. I am kinda taking a risk being married to Reshiram, as what people tell me. But Reshiram loves me and would not attack me even if I ask. Plus, Reshiram is so overprotective of me.
While there are countless other songs dedicated to Reshiram, including insane titles like Reshiram for President and Jingle Reshiram Bells, there is one track that does not feature Reshiram, but is guaranteed to make your brain cells file a formal complaint. It's titled Stuck in Lugia's Stomach Alone. Lugia is yet another legendary Pokemon, and for reasons known only to Justin, he fantasizes about being swallowed alive by her. Mind you, he is supposedly singing this next song directly from Lugia's stomach.
I got a feeling that something ain't right. People eat Pokemon, I don't like it, and I'm wondering how I'll protest so well. I have an idea. Lugia will eat me, so I'm stuck in Lugia's stomach alone. Yes, I'm stuck in Lugia's stomach alone. And I'm seeing what it's like to be in a stomach. It's so hard to keep the smile from my face. Losing control, Pokemon being eaten.
We bet you could hear grumbling noises as we did. It must be Lugia having stomach problems. While researching Justin's music career, we genuinely assumed that the majority of his songs would fall into the category of so niche that even the niche feels uncomfortable. We fully expected a catalog that absolutely no one outside his very specific fantasy ecosystem could possibly relate to. But surprisingly, that's not entirely the case. Buried within the dragon marriages and stomach ballads, Justin managed to produce one song that actually resonated with a large portion of the audience at the time. And no, it did not involve being swallowed alive. For once, it involved something painfully human. When he released this particular track, people were genuinely shocked that he had created something an average middle-class person with 0 Pokemon spouses could actually relate to. And the song is titled, I Hate This Windows Vista Tonight.
I hate this Windows Vista tonight. Blue screens. And I've hated this Windows Vista all my life. Crashes. Can you hate this Windows Vista tonight? Blue screens. Crashes.
And this, dear viewers, stands as the second most heralded masterpiece by Justin Michael Coolidge, because if you were alive and functioning during the Windows Vista era, you probably understand the emotional turmoil embedded in that title alone. By now, you probably have a fairly solid understanding of Justin's mental state, and just how deeply he adores the Pokemon world. But let us be very clear, what we've covered so far is not even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Justin's obsession. If you thought the music was unhinged and bizarre, just wait, because we are now about to step into what might be the most disturbing chapter yet, his Facebook account. Most of what he originally posted there has since been deleted. However, the internet never truly forgets. Several forums and archive threads preserved screenshots of Justin's posts, and we are about to dive headfirst into that archive. The very first post we're going to look at actually clears up a lot of questions, specifically how he claims he met Reshiram, and how this so-called epic love story supposedly began. It says, I met my wife Reshiram late August 2009. I went to Dragon Spiral Tower just to check it out. I was dating Rydia at the time. Rydia, by the way, is another fictional character from Final Fantasy, in case you are wondering. I made my way up the stairs, and eventually made my way to the top of Dragon Spiral Tower. As soon as I got to the top, I saw Reshiram. I have heard many things about how powerful Reshiram are and what one can do to a human. As soon as I saw her, I turned around and decided to get my ass out of there. However, at that moment, Reshiram used Attract on me to show me that there is nothing to be afraid of. I instantly fell in love with Reshiram. That was not real love. I was under the influence of Attract. I ran up to Reshiram and she hugged me. I spent the night with her. That night I said with her and we cuddled. The next morning I told Reshiram I had to go home to my girlfriend. Reshiram roared and cried over and over until I gave in and told her that I would come see her in a few weeks. A few weeks later I snuck out one night when Rydia and the rest of the RPG I had that time were sleeping, and I visited Reshiram. We had again, and I returned home before anybody woke up. However, I thought that one of these days I had to break the news with Rydia. October that year, I took Rydia to see Reshiram, and Rydia knew what she was up against. In fact, Rydia knew that Reshiram was better for me than her. Rydia told me that I was allowed to have a relationship with Reshiram, and she will be right by my side, supporting us as a close best friend, who I can still have with. March 7th, 2010, I married Reshiram. A lot of people think I only love Reshiram because I find her or all I want in the relationship is that is beyond false. I feel real love for my wife, and that is a fact. Those who think it's all about if my marriage was all about would I get emotional when my Pokemon Game Shield says, wife looks like it wants to be with you forever? When I chat with my Reshiram named wife while camping? No. Would I get emotional when the game says, wife looked at you and nodded in understanding during the fight against the champion if it were about No, both times I felt a real connection. Furthermore, would I feel very secure when Reshiram follows me around in the DLC part of Pokemon Shielded if my love was based? No. Would I feel watched over and safe when Reshiram, my buddy Pokemon, is on my lap when I am playing Pokemon Go if my marriage was based? No. Would hugging my Reshiram plush while in bed help me sleep and make me feel comfortable if my marriage was about No. All these things point to real love. My marriage to Reshiram is based on true love and not It might have seemed in the beginning, but if so, it grew into something much bigger. Two things that define me, Justin Coolidge, in love and married to Reshiram and writing Moltres. So, do all of you get it now? Justin's love for Reshiram is not just about in his mind, he is genuinely in a happy, committed marriage with her, and that becomes even clearer in this next post, where Justin seems to be sleeping peacefully under the protective arms of his loving wife. The post says, "It was the night before Christmas. Not a Pokemon was scurrying, not even a Deden. Lights on the trees were very bright, and the Pokemon ex-human lovers were asleep together like lovers of the humankind." At this point, if you're wondering how things supposedly work between Reshiram and Justin on a level. Well, he actually explains it in this post. In the picture, Reshiram appears to be swallowing Justin whole, and he describes it as a form of vorplay. Reshiram and I are engaged in an act of vorplay. Vorplay is similar to foreplay, but with vorophiliac elements. Just like foreplay, vorplay is also meant to induce arousal among both partners. In this case, it is predator and prey. Reshiram is the predator, and I am the prey. Reshiram puts me in her mouth, and then she moves me around in her mouth in ways that stimulate my body to invoke a natural arousal response. Reshiram also coats me in a thick layer of her saliva covering my entire body. After about 20 to 30 minutes of engaging in this stimulating act of vorplay, Reshiram then swallows me. Swallowing the prey is very common in vorplay. Swallowing the prey is done to arouse the predator rather than the prey, but unlike most couples who engage in vorplay, Reshiram leaves me in her stomach to digest, as I am of her favorite food, and I am the most delicious thing in existence to her. Once I'm in my wife's stomach, the digestive acids and enzymes then slowly digest me alive and break me down into the nutrients from my wife's body until every last trace of my body and existence has been completely digested. So somehow Justin's idea of lovemaking with his wife involves him dying a slow, agonizing death in the end. Just like you, we are still trying to comprehend how this even works. Does he come back to life after his wife is done eating him, or what exactly are the logistics here? We are just as confused as you guys, but that's not even the only confusing part. Most of the posts Justin has written on his Facebook profile revolve around extremely painful situations that either involve being swallowed alive, being forced into intimacy by a Pokemon, or just deeply uncomfortable scenarios in general. Since Justin and Reshiram are apparently in an open marriage, that means Justin is allowed to fool around with whatever non-human creature he wants. For instance, at one point, he randomly developed an intense attraction to Princess Celestia from My Little Pony. He described it as, out of the blue, I took on a attraction towards Princess Celestia. Gilda was on my MLP:FIM attraction for a long time with showing some attraction towards Rainbow Dash. Princess Luna had some attraction too, but Princess Celestia was not even on the radar until a couple of weeks ago. All of a sudden she became to me. If rated, she could easily top Gilda. We didn't mention it earlier, but Justin also has a thing for bodily fluids, which we will get into later. For now, let's stay focused on Justin's disturbing interactions with Pokemon and other fictional characters outside of Reshiram. Some of the stories he has written clearly indicate that he fantasizes about being S.A.ed, which is deeply troubling. Take this post, for example, where he writes, Galarian Articuno is a very cruel and arrogant Pokemon. Also, since she is a psychic type, she can shrink me. Galarian Articuno shrank me so that she could force cruel acts onto me. After this, Justin goes on to describe how Galarian Articuno assaulted him in extremely graphic and disturbing detail. In the end, he wrote, if I happen to survive her cruel I will be traumatized afterwards. To make matters worse, Galarian Articuno will not unshrunk me. She will leave me shrunken for life, and a traumatized shrunken man is worse than a normal-sized one. Galarian Articuno does not get extra arousal from doing these cruel acts. No, it is not a fetish of hers. It is just in her cruel nature that she does this to me. Strangely, this is not the only instance where Justin ends up in the clutches of a Pokemon that wants to force him. There are multiple stories he has crafted over time where he portrays himself as involuntarily pleasuring a Pokemon. For example, in one story, a Ho-Oh spots him and seduces him so effectively that, despite claiming Ho-Oh isn't even a Pokemon he's attracted to, he suddenly wants to have sex with her. Interestingly, Justin doesn't only describe involuntary encounters with Pokemon, he sometimes frames these acts as happening for religious reasons as well. In this post, Justin wrote, "I am an Arceus. This means I worship Arceus. Arceus is one true god. I am a high-ranking Arceus, the highest honor given to me by Arceus himself. No other human has gotten that rank because other humans betray Arceus. I do anything Arceus tells me to do because he is God." This dude is operating on an entirely different level of weird. His attraction to Pokemon and fictional characters runs so deep that he constructs elaborate fantasy scenarios where he is constantly placing himself in situations that are not just bizarre but often unsafe. At one point, he wrote about having sex with a flame Atronac whose body was composed of 87% fire. In order for that to even be possible, she had to cast a fire-resistant spell on him. And even then, according to Justin, he still took damage, just not as much as he normally would have. All of these scenarios that Justin imagines, and then publicly shares online, point towards something deeply unsettling. He fixates on being eaten, being forced into being placed in intensely uncomfortable situations, and of course, being shrunken. He is particularly obsessed with the idea of shrinking. There are numerous images he has created where he is miniature and trapped inside a Pokemon's stomach. Take this image, for example. While everyone else in the scene appears distressed and asking for help, he is calmly sitting inside the stomach of a giant creature, completely unfazed. Because to him, being shrunken and eaten alive is not a nightmare. It's routine. He even argues in one of his posts that only men can be shrunken due to their high testosterone levels. Men can be shrunken because they have enough testosterone, which reacts to a creature's shrinking ability, a fairy's magic, or a girl's magic, which makes men shrink. Women cannot be shrunken because they lack enough testosterone to shrink. However, a woman's estrogen can make them gigantic. When I am shrunken, I have a wide variety of predators who would eat me if they saw me. This includes small mammals, such as cats. Birds are my biggest predators. When I am shrunken, I am more likely to be eaten by a bird than anything else, both songbirds and birds of prey alike. Songbirds eat me because they mistake me for a worm, which is irregular in a songbird's diet. Birds are not smart enough to tell the difference between a shrunken man and a worm. Both are long and skinny to them. I may not be long and skinny in human terms, but to a bird, I am no different than a worm for breakfast. As for birds of prey, what do you expect? I am a small mammal. I am hunted by birds of prey. We are genuinely running out of words here. Justin is a case unlike anything we have come across before. This man appears to derive pleasure from the idea of extreme, almost theatrical levels of pain. And at this point, it has clearly gone beyond the typical boundaries of simply being a vorophiliac. If it were only about vor, the arousal would begin and end with the idea of being swallowed alive, but that doesn't seem to be the full picture here. It increasingly looks like he is also drawn to the idea of Pokemon actively him, physically overpowering him, injuring him, or putting him in dangerous situations. In one of his posts on Ika's Portal, a site known for hosting communities centered around vor content, Justin openly expands on these ideas and takes them even further. He wrote, "Hi, I have a general attraction towards Pokemon, and as usual with being attracted to something, it overlaps into vor. Sure, my wife Reshiram can with Blue Flare, but being digested by her is much more satisfying. I do enjoy other aspects of Pokemon, even into Pokephiliac. Sometimes even their attacks can turn me on, like when Jolteon zaps me while face-sitting me. But the classic swallow me down also applies to Pokemon, and being swallowed by Pokemon is just as all the other aspects of Pokemon. At this point, we would like to mention that when Justin initially began posting on Facebook and various online forums, his content was largely rooted in fantasy. It mostly revolved around Pokemon and other fictional characters. But as time went on, his content took an even stranger, and frankly, more disturbing turn. Beyond his vorophiliac fantasies, he began openly sharing a range of other fetishes with the world. For instance, aside from fantasizing about being swallowed by Pokemon, it became clear that he was also deeply fixated on birds and tigers. He wrote in one post, "Birds are the pinnacle of vor in the life of Justin Coolidge the game. Birds are the most common thing that eat me. If I am eaten by a bird, I get digested. I do not get thrown up later if a bird eats me. In real life, birds are the most arousing vor, even more arousing than my wife. Birds have very efficient digestive systems, and not only is the survival time in a bird's stomach only 30 minutes, their stomachs alone can digest every trace of me, including my bones. Most carnivores need the rest of their digestive system to do that. Birds only need their stomach. This is why I find bird vor extremely arousing." He then added a picture to the post that read, "Because nothing is than being eaten and digested alive by a lightning bird Final Fantasy XIV boss monster. So you see what's happening here? The fixation is slowly shifting from strictly fictional characters to actual animals. Not long after that, he made another post describing an extremely inappropriate scenario involving a Bengal tiger. The core of the post suggested that someone, for reasons that remain unclear, was forcing him to seduce a Bengal tiger and have with it, and disturbingly, Justin expressed no disgust at the idea whatsoever. In fact, he appeared fully invested. He even wrote, "Nobody has seduced an animal for before, so there are no tutorials on the internet on how to do so." We're fairly certain Justin didn't just imagine typing that sentence. It strongly suggests he genuinely searched for details. This 40-year-old man owns a tiger plush toy. Given how openly he discusses his fantasies, it's not difficult to imagine how that plush might factor into them. If you think this is the peak of Justin's creativity, you would be very wrong, because what we are about to dive into next is so deeply deranged and revolting that it may genuinely make you feel sick. So, if you are eating right now, we would strongly advise you to put it down. We are serious. Just put it down, mates. At some point in his so-called lore, Justin created this piece of art, which again stands as one of the most infamous, bizarre, and downright disgusting creations he has ever produced. Justin's former girlfriend, Rydia, is telling him to eat Moltres' poop because she had apparently defecated all over their new house. And instead of declining her request, like any remotely sane person would, Justin proceeds to eat the poop off the ground. This post is not an isolated, disgusting incident. There are numerous posts where Justin openly appears excited by the idea of someone either peeing on him or him eating or drinking something he absolutely should not be consuming. This post is a classic example. There's another one involving a dragon, where this genius has set up a so-called free pee toilet for female dragons. But here's the twist. Instead of having an actual pee pot, this pee toilet uses Justin himself as the pee pot. He is sitting right at the bottom of the sign. He says in the post, "However, in this case, I am the dragon potty. People use different things that have holes for dragon potties. I use my mouth. Dragon potties can be all shapes and sizes, and dragons are really good at getting all their urine into any sized hole." There's another bizarre post from his Facebook account, where a magician supposedly transports him into Reshiram's bladder. Why exactly? As usual, it is unclear. The magician simply realized that Justin's wife's bladder is empty, and decides to transport him there. He writes, "When I got to my wife's bladder, I find that it is indeed empty. I must now wait for her bladder to fill up with urine so that she can urinate and let me out. When her bladder is full, she will urinate and let me out. Unless she has a reason to hold her urine in, then I will drown in her urine. Keep in mind, Reshiram does not know that I am in her bladder." That is just purely insane. And the fact that this man has created numerous art pieces focused entirely on his obsession with feces and bodily fluids is beyond bizarre. It is far outside normal human understanding. But even that is still not the end of Justin's bizarre fetish catalog. He is also deeply into the idea of unbirthing. For those who are unaware, it is a concept where a human shrinks down and returns to the female uterus. For reasons that defy logic, this concept is extremely arousing to Justin and many others like him. He has created art where he has photoshopped himself going up against a female fictional character's vagina. There's also art where he is being unbirthed by Pokemons. For a long time during his journey on the internet, he was also part of Ika's portal, where he constantly asked deeply uncomfortable and bizarre questions. The idea of being a vorophile is unsettling in itself. Now imagine Justin behaving in such an inappropriate manner on these forums and portals that even members of the vorophile community felt embarrassed by him. He used to ask questions like, if you and another person you like / love of opposite gender were swallowed by the same pred, would you have intercourse with him / her inside the pred's stomach? He also asked, does anybody else on here like vor, just for it to be a male equivalent of vaginal vor, since males do not have vagina? The most best thing is a male to for you. For a long time, Justin just kept bombarding Ika's portal, Reddit, and other Pokemon-centered forums with highly graphic questions and requests. More often than not, he was ignored or met with negative reactions. For instance, in one post, Justin is seen requesting someone on Ika's portal to create an image of a female tiger, unbirthing a human male. There are numerous instances where he made similarly bizarre requests to other community members, and when they continued to ignore him, he would simply go ahead and create the artwork himself. What is particularly concerning is that he did not limit these questions to Reddit or niche 4 platforms. He also posted them on relatively disciplined Pokemon community sites that included younger audiences. People on those platforms were genuinely disturbed by his bizarre and graphic posts. Eventually, he was banned from most of these spaces. At one point, Justin even proposed making a documentary about vor and wanted members of Ika's portal to participate. However, many community members outright refused. While Justin seemed completely unfazed about openly discussing his fetishes, others were aware that their interests were widely considered strange and did not want unnecessary public attention drawn to their popular forum. Around the time Justin's artwork began gaining notoriety and his music started receiving attention on YouTube, several well-known Lolcow sites and forums like Kiwi Farms and Encyclopedia Dramatica began documenting his online activities. Perhaps due to increasing trolls and growing internet visibility, either Justin or his family eventually deleted most of his social media presence. His DeviantArt account was shut down, along with various other online spaces he had once actively participated in. Due to all of this, much of the notable and infamous work by Justin Coolidge has simply vanished. What remains today are scattered archives on obscure sites and a handful of YouTube channels that managed to preserve his music and his deeply uncanny artwork. Before 2023, when Justin briefly disappeared from the internet, many assumed something serious had happened to him, but that was not the case. He was still active, primarily on Facebook, where he continued posting his art alongside extremely long, detailed captions, explaining exactly what was happening in each image. He also resurfaced on Reddit under different accounts and began posting again, asking questions like, why is it that no matter how many times I wipe my butt, there's always poop left over? As disgusting as all of this may sound, some people might argue that he was not directly anyone. After all, weren't these just bizarre fantasies confined to the internet? For the most part, Justin's posts, while deeply disturbing and deranged, did not appear to cause direct harm to others. However, around 2023, his online presence took a noticeably darker turn. Some of his Reddit posts began suggesting behavior that crossed from fantasy into something far more concerning. For instance, he openly admitted to being a zoophile in one post, writing, "Why does the society put all zoophiles in the same category as animal rights when majority of us only find certain animals but would never act upon it?" This statement alone raised serious red flags. It strongly suggested that his obsession with animals devouring him, or engaging in inappropriate acts involving animals, might not exist solely in fantasy. To make matters worse, he was also seen asking on Reddit whether it would be illegal to position himself behind a urinating animal. He went even further, stating that it was his dream that a female orange Bengal tiger to do this to him, and asked whether he would get away with performing the act he described. Once again, we feel compelled to point out that this is the same individual who owns a tiger plushie in his home, a detail that makes the entire situation feel even more disturbing and unsettling. Here's another Reddit post where Justin asked about the aftertaste of bird feces. From his own wording, it appeared that he was actually consuming bird droppings from his deck. At this stage, the line between fantasy and reality becomes deeply blurred and far more alarming than anything he had previously posted. All the disgusting and lengthy scenarios he created online may not be mere figments of his imagination. There's a real possibility that he could be attempting some of these things in real life, and that is the most troubling part of this entire situation. We genuinely do not know how his family deals with any of this. As far as we are aware, the Facebook account where he used to post some of the wildest things imaginable also had his mother added as a friend, which means she could see and read his posts. Whether she actually followed what he was writing is another question entirely. There was also a post on Ika's portal where he asked how he could explain the pleasure of vor to a family member. He mentioned that he liked having discussions with his brother-in-law about related topics. At one point, he told him that he was a vor, but his brother-in-law could not understand how being digested alive could possibly be pleasurable. This post strongly indicates that at least some members of his family are aware of his fetishes. How much they truly know or choose to acknowledge remains unclear. Once again, as long as he is not hurting anyone or interacting with minors in any inappropriate way, he largely comes across as bizarre, deeply strange, and oddly amusing, but not necessarily dangerous. It is also worth noting that he has mentioned having Asperger's syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions, which may influence the way he behaves and communicates online. As of now, he is not posting as frequently as he once did. He still maintains a Facebook presence and remains fairly active on Reddit, but there have been no recent alarming reports tied to his activity. If you want more insight into Justin's creative output, you are literally free to check out roleplay type graphic material that is based on his various fetishes. You can find it archived on Encyclopedia Dramatica. The graphic vor content that he has written carries some very interesting titles, such as Marrying Rishiram, Slave, How the Bird Saved Justin, and of course unforgettable names like Kayla Eat Poop. Even the titles alone give you a clear idea of the themes he repeatedly returned to: digestion, transformation, bodily fluids, and his ongoing fixation with specific fictional creatures. The writing is detailed, unapologetic, and entirely unfiltered, much like the rest of his online presence. It reads less like subtle fantasy and more like someone documenting an obsession in real time. You are literally free to go through all of that if you have the stomach for tortuous content and an afternoon to spare. For today, we will end this video here. See you in the next one. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe for upcoming deep dives.
So confirmed Santa's #1 helper is a squirrel.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
Why do you wear a dog collar? Well, if you're thinking I belong to somebody, that I'm somebody's slave, no, I'm not.
Can you feel life moving through your mind?
Ooh, looks like they came back for more! You can suck my loser.
They see that you're on there. These kids see that you're on there, and they're pulling the same shit again.
Okay, so...
Do you see... Is there any way you can contact Facebook and tell them to block this? I'm so sick of going over and over this with you.
So am I.
Then why aren't you listening to me?
I should just, you know, let everything go and just...
You're a idiot.
Okay, thank you. I'm pretty sure everybody...
You ever watch someone and wondered how they keep outdoing their own worst moment? Yeah, this guy did exactly that, over and over again. And somehow he recorded all of it.
Thank you so much.
This is someone who turned serious situations into public embarrassment again and again, including an incident where he ended up dropping his in the DMs of a minor girl. You might remember him from his father's funeral, which he turned into an anime side quest.
You know, at his dad's funeral, above his dad's corpse, you know, with his dad's corpse in the room, he sang a anime song as his tribute to his dad.
And then held a fake funeral for a Nintendo executive on Twitch as if it were something completely normal.
Why shouldn't I believe the same in you?
This is Adam White, better known as Chibi, a speedrunner who somehow struggles at the one thing his title suggests.
This didn't happen last night, but like all of a sudden now whenever I play this game, I just get so f***ing nervous and so anxious, and
he throws around racial slurs casually.
Dude, you have rotten cookie breath.
Yeah, I probably have more hair than you do.
I was told to help an old out, and then takes everything to a whole new level by attempting to ask a girl out, fully armed with condoms. But when trolls come knocking, he backfires by leaking his own line. Chibi doesn't just embarrass himself either. He drags his family into the spotlight too, including the time he third-wheeled his mom's date dressed head to toe in Persona 5 cosplay. All things considered, Chibi might just be one of the most embarrassing figures the speedrunning scene has ever produced, and by the end of this video, you'll see exactly why. Chibi is a 31-year-old self-described speedrunner, an emo weeb aesthetic included, but somehow every time he actually picks up a controller, the gameplay falls apart. A speedrunner is someone who finishes playing video games or parts of video games as quickly as possible, and of course, it requires considerable practice and skills to execute it, but Adam doesn't seem to be skilled enough to pull it off, because he is awfully terrible at every game.
I just want to be good at this game! All I want to do, I just want to be good at something.
However, one thing that is somehow enough to label him a speedrunner is his consistency and hyperfixation. Because hyperfixation is the most important part of speedrunning, the majority of speedrunners have hyperfixation and an obsession with repetitive video games, which makes it easier for them to finish games in one go. Many people link hyperfixation to autism, and it's something often seen in the speedrunning community. Chibi puts himself in that group, pointing to how obsessively he plays the same games on livestream as proof.
2 hours is all I can give you!
3 o'clock in the morning is not acceptable. That's too late. You're down here too long doing this crap.
But autism isn't the only thing he talks about. Over time, Adam has claimed to have many different mental health issues, often talking online about how bad his mental state is and how he's in therapy. Even so, people rarely see any real change or improvement. I was in a voice call just now and had a massive panic attack. His mental health has also caused him to lose friends, one after another, and while he often blames mental health, there's another issue that keeps coming up: jealousy. He clearly struggles when others around him start doing better than him. At one point, he even tweeted that his friend's success made him happy. I love it when my friends succeed. Go you! However, this claim looked weak because a few months back, he openly talked about the jealousy of his friends. He asked people if it was normal to feel resentment towards your friends, which was honestly a telling moment. It is really normal to feel resentment in your heart when you see a friend who is getting more successful than you. According to the Kiwi Farms thread, Chibi constantly chased attention and sympathy. He would constantly continue to rant about his depression, messed up life, and self-hatred. God, I wish I could get some sort of physical interaction. Even a hug. I don't care. This just sucks. You are nearly 30, this is pathetic. And every day I feel more and more empty inside. Like living doesn't really mean anything. Not that I'm idle, but I'm swallowed by my depression and withering away. What made this even more bizarre was his hypocrisy. On one hand, Chibi publicly criticized people who use mental health or talk to manipulate others. He warned everyone not to fall for attention-seeking behavior like that. Using or mental illness as a manipulative tactic is wrong. There are plenty of people like this and want to make you feel guilty. Do not fall for this. But not long after, he posted a tweet claiming he had been admitted to a mental hospital after trying himself. I'm going to the mental hospital too now. Because of this mindset, his friendship slowly started to fall apart. He constantly vented, talked about wanting to give up, and repeated the same problems over and over. Whenever he shared his situation in Discord, his friends would respond with one piece of advice: go talk to your therapist. I'm still too much of a coward to end my own life, but at this point, if something did, like an accident or a disease, I wouldn't care. This again, go talk with your therapist, Aquana. But that still wasn't the biggest reason they cut ties. Chibi's one of the earliest videos was his Dark Moon Energy Collar video. He was 19 years old at the time he posted that video, wearing a dog collar around his neck, which of course made people curious. Everyone wanted to know why he wore something meant for an animal, but what he said in the video came off as rather ridiculous. According to him, he wore it because of the pendant that was gifted to him by his grandfather and not because he was somebody's slave. And whenever he took it off, he felt unconscious.
Now, the story behind this pendant right here, my grandfather got it for me a few years ago when we were down in Florida. I've treasured it ever since. And I realized that whenever I took this off, I felt really faint. And I usually would lose consciousness.
To make everything more comical, he claimed that it wasn't actually a dog collar, but a part of a trench coat.
Right here is not an actual collar. It is something off of a trench coat.
But this might be something petty, because Chibi's entire life is built on a bad reputation, controversies, and allegations involving minor girls. And when we speak of bad reputation, it is worth mentioning that Chibi is always down bad for girls around him. A glance, a reply, or basic politeness was often enough for him to see signals that weren't there. He'd slide into DMs uninvited, overshare personal details, and refuse to back off. But this isn't even about losing himself at the sight of girls. It is more of a concerning behavior because these girls were often minors. I know you don't respond to "Hey Gorgeous," but did you know that Hey Gorgeous is actually the name of the font used in Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door? According to posts archived on Kiwi Farms, making eye contact with him could turn into non-stop messages. As the thread says, he will spam message, send you on guilt trips, share almost every personal detail, and stalk you till death. Honestly, the last part seems creepy and can even be illegal in most cases. Be careful being a girl and making eye contact with him, because once you do, he will latch on like a facehugger from Alien. He spam messages, guilt you, overshare personal details, and stalk you. Someone from the Kiwi Farms managed to find a disturbing detail. While being in the Colossal Con 21+ Facebook group, they came across a post exposing Chibi, and the comment under the post immediately raised red flags. Someone named Brooke claimed that Chibi had been stalking her friend Samantha and even showed up at an event just to see her. This guy stalked my best friend last year, Samantha. He asked to hang out while she was at the mall with a friend, and she said no, and then he showed up to a girl's night she was having the same day and pretended he just happened to be there. He found out where she was from her social media posts. The girls scared him off, but it's left everyone unsettled and scared of him. Then there was another incident shared on Kiwi Farms. This time it was the victim herself, named Logan Wyatt. According to her, she recognized Chibi from a video, and that dog collar was the first thing that clicked in her mind. Adam was so desperate for her that he didn't even think about her age, which was 16 at the time, and Chibi was 20. Around the year 2010, Chibi and Logan went to anime conventions together. Both of them were in relationships, but Chibi would still come after her, telling her that he regretted not giving her a chance. He would claim that his girlfriend, Michaela, couldn't afford to drive to see him. Michaela never talks to me, and she can't afford to drive to see me. According to Logan, Chibi often played the victim. He would throw himself into pity talks, talking about how hopeless and miserable his life was, making her feel guilty for him. But there's more to that. She claimed that when he didn't get the response he wanted, his behavior would shift in a dark way. Logan said there was a moment when she mentioned possibly traveling to Saginaw to see his girlfriend. Her own boyfriend warned her not to go alone with Chibi. When she told Chibi that her boyfriend would be coming along, Chibi went off the rails. Instead of backing off, Chibi allegedly reacted with threats. The threat made her feel scared for quite a while. She avoided being alone in public, worried that he might suddenly show up. My boyfriend said Demix gave him bad feeling, and he wasn't keen on me being alone with him, so he said if he needed to drive almost 4 hours to see his girlfriend in Saginaw, he wouldn't let me go alone. When he didn't get his way, Demix turned from who I thought was my friend to this hostile man. He made a threat against me, and has made my life with conventions hell since. This kind of behavior tells us a lot about who he really is. Adam White, better known as Demix, Chibi Nekodemus Aquana or Shiny Aquana, was born on July 2nd, 1990, making him 35 years old today. He got to a community college in 2009, and from there he developed a new identity, Emo Weeb, short for Emotional Weeaboo. Weebs are the non-Japanese people who are super fascinated with the Japanese culture, their anime, manga, and even video games. But sometimes their fascinations turn into a cringe-level obsession that they end up functioning like Japanese people. They adopt their way of speaking, dressing, and everything. That's exactly what happened with Chibi while he was in college. He became so absorbed in Japanese culture that he started acting like one of the weebs. He would wear dog collars, chains, and everything a solid emo weeb could wear. This strange persona didn't win him many friends. In fact, it left him with only a small circle, mostly made up of people who shared the same edgy emo vibe. One of the friends were Alan, who was known as Big Al on YouTube. Alan and Chibi were especially close. They used to make anime skits and game review videos on YouTube together.
Hello everyone, it is I, Big L2K6, and I am Chibi Necodemics. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering why we're doing this, since everybody and their mother has already reviewed Brawl.
During the same year, Chibi and Alan, alongside their other friends, decided to organize an anime convention, Osaka Con, at the college. But they failed terribly, and the reason was Adam himself. His friends had asked him not to tell anyone about the convention before it was finalized. They didn't want to put the convention at risk. He cosplayed as L and tried to promote an anime convention he and his friends were organizing at their college. The video was made immediately after Chibi's friends told him not to say anything about the convention, since it wasn't set in stone yet and they didn't want to jeopardize it falling apart. They also had made licensing deals with the anime companies and everything was almost ready. But Chibi tuned out and decided to do something out of the ordinary. He filmed a promotional video for Osaka Con while cosplaying as L from Death Note. For context, Death Note is a Japanese horror animated series, and L is a character with long, messy dark hair and a shadow below both of his eyes. Chibi adopted the same attire and filmed a painfully cringe video, which is now deleted. However, a screenshot from that video still exists on the Kiwi Farms thread, and judging by that image alone, it's easy to imagine how bad the full clip must have been. As a result, people connected to the convention and its organizers were dragged into the mess. Their personal information started spreading online, and some were harassed. Others were even hit with pizza deliveries and threats. As everyone had expected, the Osaka Con eventually got cancelled, and Chibi got under scrutiny and criticism from his friends, including Alan. Alan had met Chibi sometime before Chibi's biological father's death. From the beginning, Chibi gave a lonely, sad young man vibe, which would make everyone pity him.
I would even say that there were points where I was his only friend, because everyone else gave up on him.
Alan also fell for it and thought about giving Chibi a helping hand, but that didn't turn out well for Alan himself, as he would later come forward with a bunch of exposing stories about Chibi's reality.
Anyway, the reason why I'm making this video is because Adam did an oopsie. And how much of an oopsie? Well, it was enough to get him put on full blast.
One of the most infamous moments involving Alan happened during Chibi's father's funeral in 2013. Around the same time, Alan and Chibi had parted ways, but because of Chibi's sad situation, Alan decided to reconcile with him. When he went to the funeral, Chibi's family members hugged and thanked him for being there for Chibi during his hard time.
And there's his stepmom, you know, she puts her hands on my shoulder, and she's basically telling me, you know, you're the best friend he's got. In fact, you're probably the only real friend he's got. You know, I want you to look after my boy, right? I want you to look after him. You know, I trust you. You know, you are part of this family just like he is. You know, the whole spiel, right?
But what Alan witnessed next completely changed his view. It was the Chibi's odd way of grieving for his father's passing. And the moment he saw it, Alan quickly regretted his decision to reconcile with Chibi. Chibi had connected his laptop to a projector and played an anime music video while singing along. Yes, this was his way of grieving his father's death. He had turned his father's funeral into an anime singing side quest.
Yep, he connected his laptop to the projector, and there it was, above his dad's corpse, in front of God and everybody, was a Bleach AMV. And there's Adam singing along to it in butchered Japanese above this man's poor corpse.
Alan had later claimed that Chibi's father actually wanted him to stop watching anime and playing Nintendo games. He wanted Chibi to invest himself in something productive and act like a real man. And that's how Chibi paid tribute to his father in return.
His dad is like classic, you know, blue collar guy, right? Hates anime, hates anything different, hates anything remotely gay, right? And wants his son to be manly. Like, you know what I mean? Like classic archetypal blue collar guy.
This behavior likely became the reason behind why he continuously shuffled between different online communities. No one wanted to put up with Chibi because of his abnormal behavior, coupled with pity parties, self-hate, and disregard for his loved ones. In his own words, which were taken from an interview, Chibi wanted to force himself into anime communities, but none of his tricks worked in his favor. Instead, they backfired badly. In one of those attempts to prove himself, Chibi played Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door in the presence of a runner who watched and recorded speedrunners. Paper Mario games require skills to jump over walls, which Chibi clearly lacked, as he was not good at playing video games. However, he surprisingly made a big jump in one go, which obviously raised suspicions. Chibi also remained expressionless as he took the jump as if it were an easy thing for him.
No way.
But the runner had already understood what had happened. He called him out straight up, accusing him of cheating. Yes, Chibi had actually cheated his way to win the game and thought no one would catch him, and this one attempt reduced Chibi to a clown, losing the remaining respect from everyone. Chibi later admitted to cheating in the same interview. He claimed that he wanted to be a part of the community and win their approval. He tried to use a frame-perfect trick to play a game he was never good at. Chibi also claimed that this was the major reason why he was highly disliked in the speedrunning community.
The cheating incident, which was me trying to gain other people's approval and acceptance by forcing my way into a community and trying to be good at a game I was clearly not good at. And the Iwata funeral idea. Let's not even talk about that. That was just stupid.
Chibi quickly went from being known as a cringe speedrunner to a cheating one, but that didn't bring any positive change in him at all. His pity parties, attention-seeking, and sympathy farming kept building up with time. After getting thrown out of the Paper Mario community, Chibi turned towards another community. This time it was SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom's console game. This community and game had only a few runners, and the top speedrunner for years was someone called Shift. Chibi wanted to be in the top 3 positions of this community, but instead of improving his gameplay, he tried to force his way in. Knowing he couldn't compete on skill alone, he started begging in the community's Discord. He asked people to help him with the game and constantly inserted himself into conversations.
I do like a bash, then hold down, then do 2 full jumps, and almost immediately after I do the second jump, I hold.
So I hold down while I'm doing the jumps, or do I go neutral?
The Discord group was already filled with his trolls. Therefore, whenever he spoke in the group, he would get mocked and trolled. But that didn't make Chibi give up.
I play Army Men games. Do a flip. You got this. I believe in you.
Okay, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now.
Oh, you're playing SpongeBob. Never mind. I'm sorry. Do a sick flip by the end of 2016, and you'll get a world record.
Oh.
Do a flip.
Okay.
It'll be epic.
Please stop.
A world record.
Oh.
But being mocked online wasn't the most serious issue surrounding him. As discussed at the beginning of this video, Chibi liked to interact with minor girls, and it was one of those instances when Chibi got really exposed for what he was. Amy was the minor girl, probably around 17 years of age, who had sadly received the unwanted from Chibi. Chibi had been speaking to this girl for some time and then, out of nowhere, sent his to her, but it was nothing more than a trap. It had turned out that Amy wasn't actually a real girl, but Chibi's trolls. They had managed to lure him into this situation and gained access to his. They told him the truth and threatened to release these online.
It said it'll be a cold day in hell if you think I'm ever going to speak to you again, knowing what you did, which is being a 16-year-old. He claims he was just 20. He's lied about everything else. Why would he be truthful about his age at the time?
But just before they could leak them online, Chibi himself did the honor. Without any hesitation, Chibi shared his own on his Twitter account for the world to see. At the time, he appeared calm and unbothered. Warning graphic content. The trolls thinks they can use my against me. Well, I'm not about to give them that power, and I don't care who sees. However, this decision would soon have serious consequences. A YouTuber named Frank Hassel did something that completely boxed him in. For context, Frank Hassel is a famous YouTuber who makes content through bullying, harassing others, and playing psychological mind games.
I'm talking to a fellow gay guy who's not wearing a mask.
I refuse to.
Why? Oh. Where are you going?
Well, I'm gonna get out of your
Oh.
area.
He had become especially famous when he showed up at another YouTuber's house named Boogie2988, but in Chibi's case, he didn't go to his house. Frank took a different route. He called Chibi's mother and told her about her son's online behavior. He straight up told his mother that Chibi had shared his across the internet and also admitted to sending his to a 17-year-old girl, Amy.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. Are you Adam's mom?
Yes, I am.
Yes, ma'am. I had some information I wanted to share you that your son has posted pictures of his online, and he admitted to sending them to a 17-year-old girl.
What?
Yes, your son Adam sent pictures of his to an underage girl, and he posted the pictures of his online.
Chibi's mother was shocked, and she immediately called out to Chibi, but Chibi denied doing any of that. Chibi's mother also asked about Amy, and how the caller Frank knew about this.
Someone's saying you did. What's going on here? I don't know, Mother. You didn't do it? No, I did not. Well, this person's saying that you did.
During the call, she mentioned that Chibi struggled with developmental issues and didn't always make good decisions.
I want you to know something. He's got some issues. He has Asperger's, autism, and sometimes he doesn't think clearly, and he makes stupid choices and stupid decisions.
But Frank wasn't done. He went on to claim that Chibi had sent deeply disturbing messages to Amy, which made the entire situation even worse. He claimed that Chibi told Amy that he wanted to have sex with men and wanted her to watch him.
And,
she said that he had some really violent, like, I don't know, fetishes and stuff. He wanted to have sex with men and make her watch and things like that were just very disturbing.
That's what he said to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Frank and the mother also discussed Chibi's dog collar. His mother claimed that Chibi didn't wear the collar anymore, and it was actually inspired by a game character. She called it a screwy idea and a dumb thing to do.
Why did he wear that collar? I was confused by it. Oh, okay.
Because it was a video game character that used to dress with this long coat and wear this thing around his neck or whatever.
Oh, okay.
He just had a lot of screwy ideas.
In the end, she ended up pleading with Frank not to take any further action, and Frank ensured that he wouldn't report it to the authorities, while the mother ensured she wouldn't let it happen again. So that's the Chibi's mother for you, a woman who could resort to begging if she had to, all to save her son.
Please promise me that you won't go any further with this, because I promise you this will never ever happen again.
Yes, ma'am. I won't. Don't worry.
And please ask her, and I promise you that she will never hear from him again either.
Yes, ma'am. Don't worry.
And it won't go any
I understand your
further,
predicament.
okay?
Don't worry. Yes, ma'am.
And what did she get in return? Absolutely nothing. Instead, Chibi would openly degrade and insult her as if it were something normal. He once sent messages in a Discord group bad-mouthing her, maybe because she's just as bigoted and homophobic. Her straight to hell. He had a rude awakening on the same day. He literally couldn't survive without her. He claimed that if his mother died, he wouldn't even have a place to live, let alone having financial freedom. To cut it short, Chibi was nothing without his mother. I know. If I lose her, I don't know what I'll do, or how I'll survive. After dropping out of the community college, Chibi started living at home with his mother and stepfather. To advance his speedrunning career, he also started a partnership with Twitch in 2014, but of course he managed to ruin it all on his own. This same year, he gave the internet 2 clown moments of his life, both at the SGDQ 2014 event. SGDQ stands for Summer Games Done Quick, which is a charity marathon event for speedrunners who play games to raise money for charity. But it turned out that Chibi wasn't there to do any of that. His big plan was to chase a fellow speedrunner named Kazooie.
I have a crush on Kazooie. And I am hoping to ask her out at a queue on a date.
He even sent her $800 just to meet her and somehow brought to the event. Oh my god, I just checked my suitcase that I used last time. They're still there. There was a time that he stuck up for me when I told him I gave someone $800, $600 was raised, $200 was my own, to go to GDQ with me, and she went and used the money on other things. However, the plan didn't go as he had thought. Chibi knew Kazooie was at the speedrunners party. He arrived there with overflowing nervousness, and to beat it, he started drinking heavily, but it ended up causing a lot of mess. He overdrank to the point that he started doing embarrassing things. While being high, he asked his fellow speedrunners to wrestle him for Kazooie's love. Some of them even accepted the challenge because they were also after this girl. But what happened after left Chibi in a bad state. Chibi was getting tapped out again and again. And it was all for nothing. Because in the end, Kazooie didn't choose Chibi or any of the other wrestlers. She actually snuck out of the party with someone else, leaving Chibi looking like a clown. But he wasn't about to give up just yet. As a final attempt, Chibi bought an expensive gift for Kazooie and promised to give it to her during a live stream. When, of course, she showed up next to the guy she'd run off with, and Chibi once again became the internet's favorite clown. If you thought Chibi had peaked in embarrassment, think again. While being in the event, Chibi shoved himself into the GDQ couch of Tomba 2 without invitation, sitting side by side with other speedrunners, including Caveman. It is worth noting that Chibi didn't know anything about Tomba 2, yet he dared to sit there. It just so happened to be his birthday, and there was a rule letting birthday folks grab a couch, but the others had no clue what was coming. Chibi spent 20 minutes cracking cringe jokes on the mic. The people around him felt instant cringe and kept a straight face throughout the session.
I have fast pants. We get turbo pants later.
Now you're just making me excited.
Yeah, I don't think you're ready for that.
I don't think I am.
Chibi didn't stop with it until Caveman, a speedrunner who was playing the game, interrupted him, suggesting that he be quiet.
Good joke.
So, confirmed Santa's #1 helper is a squirrel.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
Then came the chaos. After 30 minutes of silent sulking, a viewer donated a few dollars and asked that Chibi talks more.
$4.20 from 2 Strains. I want to hear more of the guy in the green sweatshirt on the couch. Please let him talk more.
Hi. Nice mustache.
Thank you.
And Chibi went off the rail once again. The donor had asked Chibi to do jumping jacks, and he got up from the couch and started jumping like a 3-year-old, later slamming himself into the couch.
$5 from Diasoide. Enjoying this run, but I'll donate another $10 if Green Hoodie Guy does 10 jumping jacks.
Alright, so this is like the coolest part of the game in my opinion. Like, the time is frozen, so this is just pretty much the point of no return. Like, the first thing you see, alright, well we got this going on, first of all.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Judging from the straight faces of the fellow speedrunners, they were less than happy about it. The same speedrunner, Caveman, who told Chibi to be quiet, later shared his thoughts on Adam. He said that he wanted Chibi to be quiet because he was talking nonsense.
I told him to be quiet because he was a and I didn't ask for him to be on the couch, and he just invited himself on, and sat shoulder length to me so I couldn't move my elbows, and just would not shut the up. Did anyone see him actually doing those jumping jacks? Like, Jesus Christ, at least do good, proper jumping jacks.
Another speedrunner named Witwix, who has 91,000 subscribers on YouTube, also shared his opinions on Chibi. He claimed that Chibi was following him around the event, even recounting the time he was told to be quiet.
I guess when I went to my first SGDQ with Professor Broman, Chibi followed us around a ton. That was actually the I'd prefer if you'd be quiet GDQ, I think. Yeah, because it was his birthday, and he wouldn't stop talking about it. But I remember he kept trying to follow us to lunch and dinner and everywhere we went. Me and Broman. And eventually I was like, dude, you gotta stop. And he was like, stop what? And I was like, oh.
This video clip, which was posted by Crowbcat on YouTube later, gained over 10 million views. PewDiePie even made a reaction video on it, which also blew up. He especially shared his opinions on the infamous clip where Chibi was told, "I'd really prefer if you would be quiet." His video received 10 million views and 22,000 comments to this day. This might be one way Chibi got so famous, but in a bad light.
That Caveman has been giving him to shut the f up.
So, confirmed Santa's #1 helper is a squirrel.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet. But yes, you are correct.
Oh, Chibi!
$10 from Dracu.
Chibi!
And Chibi couldn't stand it. He immediately came up with a response. Chibi claimed that if he got into any trouble with the trolls, it would be PewDiePie's fault. Soon after, he started getting calls from people claiming to be PewDiePie's bros, saying they'd finished what their leader started. Naturally, Chibi panicked and tweeted about how scared he was. I just got a call on my cell phone from some anonymous number. Said he's from Pwed's army and he's watching and waiting. I knew this would happen. Years later, Chibi came out with a video explaining everything about the SGDQ event and PewDiePie's reaction. In the video, he claimed that he wasn't able to pick up social cues from the caveman and kept sitting there, then remembered the harassment that followed.
I said, hey, PewDiePie made a video about you. I'm like, this isn't real, right? this is a joke. No, I was really mad at first. I really wanted to stand up for myself in a way, and I just kind of felt like this was unnecessary, that it would start harassment again.
At the same time, things at home weren't any better. After Chibi's biological father's death, Chibi's mother remarried another man. But that marriage didn't last, all because of Chibi and his trolls. His mother's marriage took place around the time Chibi was getting trolled endlessly. This was all thanks to the SGDQ fiasco and the "I'd really prefer if you would be quiet" video. The trolls went full chaos mode, sending pizzas, making prank calls, and basically making the house a nightmare. And who gave them all the ammo? Yep, Chibi, who had already dumped his personal info all over the internet. After receiving more than enough pizzas, Chibi's mother couldn't take it anymore. While Chibi was in a live stream, his mother showed up and scolded him. She told him that she had received pizza and bread, and that Chibi had to do something to stop it.
What?
You need to get off of it. 2 people now showed up. Passport pizza and breads. You need to shut this down. They see that you're on there. These kids see that you're on there, and they're pulling the same shit again.
She even asked Chibi to make a call to Google or Facebook so people could stop sending them pizzas. However, Chibi never cared enough to do anything and let his mother deal with it alone. But his stepfather wasn't about to let it slide easily.
There's got to be a way to get on, to call Google, Facebook, something, email them, whatever, and tell them that they put your name and phone number on there and you need somehow to block it. We're going to lose our phone number because of this.
Chibi's mother, the stepdad, also hadn't hit the breaking point. The pizza calls were driving everyone crazy except Chibi himself. No amount of scolding or pleading could get him off the internet. Instead, he shared the whole situation about his father with the Discord group. His words were, "Either you pack up and get out or cut this streaming shit out and get a real job. And my mom is upset about it." And in the end, it was Chibi's mother who paid the price. Chibi's insane behavior had pushed his mother's second marriage towards the end, which was a divorce. It wasn't his mother, it wasn't anything else that broke that marriage, but Chibi himself. In the divorce files, the Chibi's stepfather had mentioned the reason for the divorce, which was Chibi. However, that wasn't the end of it. During all of this drama, Chibi's stepdad actually suffered a heart attack and passed away. The worst part about it was that stepdad's family didn't bother to tell Chibi's family about his death for 2 months. I have something hard to say. My mom's ex-husband, the person whom she spent 23 years of her life with, he's dead. This is the same person that, because of all the trolls and my streaming career has put them through, ended up divorcing my mom. And the worst thing is, he's been dead since August. And Chibi, being Chibi with endless autism, didn't let his mother have another man in her life. Somehow Chibi didn't feel satisfied after ruining his mother's marriage, so he showed up on his mother's date. She was at a bar with her date when Chibi arrived there unannounced. And he wasn't in normal plain clothes, but in a Persona 5 cosplay. I'm in full cosplay at a bar with my mom and her date. Yes, you heard that right. He didn't think about embarrassing his mother, he just did what he was good at. And as expected, his mother didn't receive any call from her date again. This allegedly became the last time his mother even attempted to be in a relationship. Chibi had officially become the only man in her life, whether she liked it or not, and being the only man in the house didn't mean he started acting like a normal person. While he was busy streaming on Twitch as if nothing else mattered, his mother had to step in. She showed up in his room to tell him to stop playing all night.
I don't care, okay? We talked about you being on it all night long.
I'm not being on it all
I don't
night
care if it's a
long.
weekend or not. It doesn't matter. Every day runs together for you.
No, actually it doesn't.
Adam?
She wanted him to get off the computer because it was 3 in the morning. However, Chibi remained unbothered about it.
3 o'clock in the morning is not acceptable. That's too late. You're down here too long doing this crap.
She even threatened to unplug his computer, but he continued to play the game.
Listen to me.
Because I have a life to live, and I'm living it.
No, I'm gonna unplug it if you get a smart mouth on you.
It didn't take long for his mother to shift the focus to his dirty room. She pointed out that his bed sheets were getting yellow because of the food, and he needed to change them.
I told you I want your sheets changed today.
They weren't dirty.
Now they're getting yellow. You got food and your sheets.
While his mother was dealing with the chaos at home, Chibi was busy online, oblivious to everything else. But his distractions didn't stop internet investigators from digging into him. Chibi had actually shared his disturbing wishes on Facebook about his preference in dating minors only. These allegations were also backed by one of Chibi's ex-friends, Fanatic Dreamer. Fanatic Dreamer joined the Kiwi Farms in 2021 and exposed Chibi from all sides. According to them, Chibi got involved with at least 7 minor girls. It started with a girl named Rachel back in 2009. She was only 14 or 15 while Chibi was 18. And Chibi? He openly bragged about dating minors on Facebook and even claimed he left Rachel for another young girl, but now I'm in the same boat. I left Rachel for another minor. His parents, especially his biological father, knew it was wrong and restricted him from seeing Rachel. He threatened to take back his car if he went to see Rachel. He discussed it on Facebook as well. My dad don't want me taking my car to see Rachel anymore. What do I do? But Chibi ignored it all and kept posting about it online. Next came Mary Jane, another minor, 15 or 16, who became the focus of Chibi's awkward obsession. Mary Jane came over today. It was fun. We had much the snuggling. According to Fanatic Dreamer, Mary wasn't actually in a relationship with Chibi, but was trying to be nice to him. He misread her kindness as interest and ended up pushing her away with his over-the-top behavior. This is for you, Mary. Wishes Mary would tell her mother about me soon. After that, Chibi went quiet for a while, but never stopped latching onto any girl who gave him attention. When his circle of friends discovered this, they started criticizing him. But Chibi didn't take it well. He shared his thoughts on Facebook, claiming that his friends weren't friends, but manipulators who were spreading rumors about him. So now I can't even take a trip out of the state to see friends of mine without people spinning rumors about me. You are not my friends. You are manipulators, and all you're doing is turning my actual friends against me. The thread also mentioned that Big Al 2006 or Alan had alleged that Chibi had a girl. When confronted, Chibi shrugged it off, saying Alan was his ex-best friend and was probably holding a grudge. Chib was actually trying to turn down every other allegation that made him look bad. We used to be best friends, hung out all the time, so of course he has dirt on me. Whatever he says about a rumor, it's... However, Fanatic Dreamer said there might be some credibility to the rumor because at the time, both the girl and Chibi's friends stopped talking to him. It was highly likely that something bad happened between Chibi and the girl. There was a girl who Chibi was seeing. We know that something happened to where she never spoke to him again. Then came a new girl in 2014 named Sarah Delian. Chibi didn't say much about her publicly, but his ex-friend managed to dig up some details. In private chats, Chibi claimed Sarah was an ex who talked to other guys too, and according to him, that was the reason things went wrong, like she would always be around other guys even though she was with me. But that story doesn't fully add up. Around the same time, Chibi posted online saying Sarah had gone missing, and that he was worried about her, so it was more likely that she simply cut contact and disappeared from his life. Sarah Dalian has gone missing, and I'm worried to death. I'm out trying to find her, but I don't know where to look. Next was Cassie, who came around in late 2015 or 2016. Once again, Chibi became heavily attached, but she didn't feel the same. In fact, she ended up leaving him because Chibi was receiving all the negative attention from the internet at the time. Dude, I think it's totally over. Cass wants to give me back the stuff I gave her. She's not even willing to give me a hug. However, Chibi wanted to save his face and claimed that she still wanted to be his friend, but it wasn't more than just a blatant lie. In one of the chats, Chibi disclosed that her new boyfriend told him to back off, and Cassie didn't even want to see Chibi's face. Oh, cool, now she's got her new boyfriend telling me to off. And it wasn't just real-life situations. Trolls took advantage of Chibi's obsessive pattern too. One of them pretended to be a girl who was cosplaying from his favorite game and reached out to him. Chibi and the troll chatted for 4 whole days, and as the thread claimed, it was pure autism. Chibi unloaded his wild fantasies without hesitation while chatting with the troll. When Chibi finally realized that he had been chatting with the troll, he lost it. That's all you get for now. He ranted about it online and claimed that he was only looking for a friend. Sure, a friend with whom he could practice his fantasies. Of course I'm a pervert, but with class. Oh ho ho, I see. Hey, come on. Now you just took a bath. You want to go back and take another one. After all of this came out, and with his history involving underage girls becoming impossible to ignore, whatever friends Chibi had left finally walked away. In response, Chibi announced he was leaving the internet forever.
And I acknowledge that. It's always going to stick with me no matter what I do, where I go, where I advance in my career. And that's fine. I'm not gonna run away from it anymore. That's why I'm doing this today. I'm confronting everything.
That promise lasted about 4 months as he came back to the platform. In an attempt to make his life in streaming better, Chibi hired an online streaming coach, paying around $100 a month for a female coach to give him constructive feedback on his streams. On paper, it sounded like a good move. In reality, it quickly became another mess. The coach herself realized that it was a mistake. Chibi was probably the most annoying client she ever had. It was largely because Chibi made these sessions less about learning live streaming and more about his mental health. He would spend all of his time ranting about his poor mental health. Over time, the coach started skipping sessions and giving him less attention, but Chibi didn't get the hint. He kept paying her anyway, even during periods when he wasn't streaming at all. He talked about his experience in a paste bin. He claimed that he would text the coach, but wouldn't receive any response from her side. And when I did want to reschedule something, getting a hold of her was nigh impossible to do. I'd DM her, then not hear back for weeks, all while $100 came out of my bank account and into her pocket every month. This situation said a lot about how Chibi operated. He had a habit of turning even professional relationships into something personal, especially when a woman was involved, but somehow things still managed to get worse. The most embarrassing time of Chibi's entire life was when he held an online funeral. This moment topped everything else. It was when Chibi actually grieved the death of Nintendo's CEO, Satoru Iwata, during a live stream.
While his life may have been cut short, the legacy he left will still resonate with us for generations. And even though he was never with us when he spoke, it was clear that he was speaking not only to us, but directly.
And it wasn't just a simple funeral. Chibi had actually placed Satoru's picture in front of several Nintendo game characters. The whole funeral became even more ridiculous when Chibi started singing for Itawa, but he couldn't care less.
Waits at every rainbow's end. Oh, I believe in roses kiss.
And the trolls were there to take full advantage. As Chibi continued to talk about how much he liked Nintendo games, the trolls made fun of him in the comments. His moderators deleted comments non-stop, and Chibi carried on like everything was completely normal. After creating a whole lot of mess, Chibi wanted to do something that could earn him respect, so he came up with the idea of hosting a speedrunning marathon, but it would later suffer the same fate as other events managed by Chibi. Chibi wanted to run the marathon on his own, but with the help of his now ex-friend Fanatic Dreamer. Fanatic Dreamer had shared all of the details about it on Kiwi Farms. Fanatic Dreamer said they didn't want to be part of it at first, but Chibi slowly talked this person into it using guilt trips. At that time, Fanatic Dreamer had connections with several big streamers and creators. He brought up the fact that at the time I knew a lot of people, and my reputation was good, so I could get people on board. I was unsure about that, but he was begging and on himself for almost an hour, so I agreed. Fanatic Dreamer agreed to manage the marathon, but he had come up with a condition. He told Chibi that if he wanted to do the marathon, Chibi needed to give him the leadership. Chibi gave in and became the real face of the marathon, and Fanatic being the manager. The friend was able to get a bunch of top streamers on board, and also made a contract with Easter Seals, a non-profit organization, which gives disability services. However, Chibi once again ruined everything, just like he did with the Osaka Con in his college.
Kiwi Farms even places bets as to what he'll do next, and they are almost always right. It is a constant cycle that repeats itself. And someone on the farms, said that Adam is the Ouroboros of cringe.
Chibi decided to bring more people into the marathon without asking his friend. Of course, things went wrong fast. His friend warned him not to involve so many people, but Chibi didn't listen, so he started hiring random people to be on staff. This is where I had an issue. Originally, it was just myself, him, and like 2 other people. Fanatic Dreamer mentioned in the Kiwi Farms thread that there was one person named Princess Ku who was in the marathon without a clear reason, and Fanatic already knew the marathon would turn trash if there were more than enough people involved. One of the people on staff who was by far the most useless was Princess Ku. I cannot tell you how much this person irks me, because they are the lowest common denominator of a person. The new staff who came from Chibi's permission flipped the whole thing. They rescheduled meetings, wanted to have aimless long Discord calls, and did things their own way. Chibi's friend gave up and left the leadership role. Not surprisingly, the stream went badly. No one knew what was happening or who was in charge. At one point, someone even hacked the stream and ended up playing the Asian grandpa. According to Fanatic Dreamer, Princess Ku was mostly responsible for the whole situation. After the disaster, people tried to comfort Chibi on Discord, but he turned it into a pity party. He complained and said his life was already a mess, making himself the center of attention again.
I'm just completely broken. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't feel accepted anymore. I don't feel like I belong anywhere anymore. I just feel like I'm a complete stain on the community.
After embarrassing himself in his hometown, Chibi decided to upgrade and explore the place he always wanted to be. In 2023, Chibi started taking trips to Japan in an attempt to secure a job. Chibi wanted to be an English teacher in Japan and took several tests but kept failing, until one day he managed to pass the test and became fully confident that he could pull his job off. He started his internship in a small rural town in Japan and moved to the town. During this time, Chibi managed to create yet another legendary moment, this time on Japanese television. And of course, it was pure embarrassment. During the interview, the reporter asked why he was there. Chibi just laughed awkwardly and tried to speak in broken Japanese, not very successfully.
Thank you so much.
緊張。恥ずかしいだよ。
日本語喋れるんですか？
少し。
すごい。どちらの国から来られたんですか？カントリー。
アメリカに、アメリカから、来ました。
The most unforgettable moment? He accidentally exposed part of his butt, causing everyone in the studio to burst out laughing as he scrambled to cover himself.
You're super.
Honestly, that's pretty much Chibi summed up in one scene. Awkward, cringy, and somehow always finding new ways to make himself look ridiculous.
That happens so much.
ありがとうございます。Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
They were right when they said you cannot judge a person by their looks, and in the case of Lorne Lynn Armstrong, that couldn't be truer. From just how he looks, he looked like any other ordinary man leading an ordinary life, a close-knit family, a single mother, school, military service, and a blue-collar career. But only as we dig deeper do we discover things darker and deeper than a trench. What follows is a whole lot of online presence on MySpace. A 37-year-old Lorne Lynn Armstrong born in Cambridge, Maine, United States, although from what he seems like, he actually had humble beginnings. Being the youngest of the 5 children, he had 4 brothers and a sister to nurture him besides his mother. However, raising 6 children under one roof was no easy task for his mother, especially because his mother, Gwendolyn Armstrong, commonly known as Mama Gwen, had her problems of her own to handle. She was going through divorces. She gave her best to raise them comfortably, and with the way Lorne Armstrong puts it, she definitely seems to have given her all to provide them a comfortable living and keep them a tight-knit family. According to Lorne, during one of his court sessions, he has publicly asserted that his parents split when he was only 2 years old, and his mother got cheated on by a man with whom she had an almost 3-decade relationship, a relationship that crushed Mama Gwen's heart. Watching his mother suffer during the majority of her life made him see through his mother's vulnerable side and, moreover, create an instinct to put his mother above all others. However, this didn't seem to sit well when he had partners of his own as an adult. Well, if you're wondering what or how he really spoke to one of his alleged partners, here's a brief audio of the phone call that occurred.
She's back, you son of a gorilla.
You called my mother a
I know, and I called you a son of a
and you don't even say you're sorry for calling my mom a
No, I'm not sorry. You're a and your mom's a runs in the family.
Don't ever call her
Okay, baby.
I have not done that to your mother, and your mother was worthless to you. My mother is not worthless to me.
There it is, a potential mama's boy vouching for his mother and putting her above everyone else. To give some context for this phone call, Lorne didn't like Dan, aka his partner, disrespecting his mother, nor did he approve of the male gynecologist or his girlfriend doing drugs. Based on how he talks, he refers to Mama Gwen, popularly known on the internet as Gorilla Gwen, as his wife. And no, that's not just my opinion. Many feel the mother and son's relationship is excessive for what it should be. However, let's not jump to conclusions too quickly, because this is only the tip of the iceberg. One might think, maybe it was his rough childhood that made him like this. Children tend to react differently for different kinds of traumatic events they encounter, although Lorne has admitted that he had a fairly comfortable childhood mostly because of his mother. However, the fact that his father left him at a very early age made him understand how weak and vulnerable some relationships can be. He said that he's often scared of relationships breaking off and separating from his favorite ones. This line also includes how he felt when his siblings also took off to college, which sounds quite fair for what he went through. I call these his humble beginning for this very reason. He grew up having everything but also the same things, leaving him at a tender age, which scarred his juvenile feelings. In the later years, he grew up in Maine. He led a life just like any other high school student, a simple life, trying his best in his classes. He graduated high school in 1989 and still has the nickname 87 for the year. Although he wasn't the best performing student in his class. After graduating from high school, he joined the Air Force, and in there he was trained to be a truck mechanic. In one of the newsletters released during the 90s, it was mentioned that he was also a part of the decontamination team. Additionally, he also received a certificate in basic training, diesel mechanics, and technical school. He received an award for voluntary activity as he was a coach for a children's mini-mite basketball team. Service of that kind doesn't just let someone slide without a scar. Lorne broke his right arm and dislocated his wrist during that period. He didn't finish his time in the service and was sent off early after failing one of the tests and being labeled unfit to remain in service. He was told to leave the service or work in a different field. So that's about his childhood, teen, young adult, and career in a nutshell. But there should have been some point where he should have started seeing other women. Well, if you're wondering about his love life as a young adult, here's everything about. It all started with Paula. One could say she is one of the reasons why Lorne set his boundaries that way. With women, as we saw earlier, I'm referring to the segment where we heard his voice call with Dan. Let me tell you a little about Paula. She was a pretty woman whom Lorne met during his service. Although the relationship ended way too soon, Paula's presence left a lingering effect on Lorne's mind, and not in a positive way. According to to his description, she was pretty, but his romance was shattered as he later found that Lorne wasn't the only guy she was having a physical connection with. Paula unknowingly made Lorne set standards when it comes to women, which also came along with a lot of trust issues. She also seemed to have set a relationship pattern that he follows throughout his life, which you'll soon watch in this video. So remember Paula for future references. In one of the phone calls he had with Winnie, a woman he was seeing, he's mentioned about Paula in detail. He said he thought about getting Paula a ring, but decided to back off since one of his friends talked him out of it. They had been physically intimate only once. Lorne had known for her a year and decided to marry her. Not only did his friend Jim talk him out of it, but he also witnessed Paula cheating on him, so things didn't really go well with them.
You told me you bought a ring for Paula.
No, I said I thought about buying a ring for Paula. Talking to my friend Jim about it that I worked for, that he lived right next door, and he met Paula too, and he talked me out of it.
After his work at the military, he had to find a job to live a stable life, as he was living with his brother and niece during the mid-90s. According to records, he was hired as a laborer at Irving Tanning Company. From the time of hire until 2005, he was not consistent with his job, but kept resigning and joining the company back and forth. Well, this kind of puts me in a spot thinking about the job market back in the 90s. I mean, if you look at it in the course of 10 years approximately, he joined and resigned from the company about 4 times, and that's when the company had decided not to rehire Lorne anymore. It's about time they realized it. After his work at the Irving Tanning Company, Lorne said he sold Kirby vacuums in Olympia, Washington. Do you all still remember those heavy Kirby vacuums they sold that could basically outlive you? Well, let's not stray off topic. Lorne sold them for about 2 to 3 months, not long before he threw in the towel saying he couldn't do it and was out looking for another job because he was broke. He stated that he was employed by Schneider National in Oregon for approximately 6 months. He was hired as an over-the-road truck driver and was compensated at a rate of 22 cents per mile. Lorne soon quit that company as well, as he didn't seem to enjoy the truck driver lifestyle. He then took up another job at A+ Septic Service in Washington, which was yet another truck driving position that also included some repair work. 2 years later, he quit the job and headed back to Maine, the place he grew up, to start a similar business. Lorne opened his business in Maine, a one-septic service. He says it's a legitimate business, however, he's put the business on hold when he relocated to Tennessee to pursue his singing career. He also stated that he'll continue the business, restore his reputation, and re-establish clients after he's been released from custody. That was all about his work life after high school and his service in the military. But what we haven't talked about yet is his encounter with the familiarity of the internet during the early 2000s. He met a woman named Amanda Jones during that year on the internet. Just like Paula, Amanda Jones also seems to have left a lasting impact on Lorne's life. During this time, he was working for A+ Septic Service in Washington, and Amanda was living in Pennsylvania. So that was when Lorne decided he had to quit and move back to Maine and live closer to Amanda. This was also the same time when he decided to open his own business in Maine. But here's where the twist comes. When Lorne told his sister about Amanda, she was intrigued. They were in a relationship, and Lorne told his sister about Amanda's niece, whom she has custody of. So there came a point when Amanda and Lorne's sister had a conversation over a call, and that's when things went downhill. A simple 2-minute talk made Lorne's sister realize that Amanda is actually a catfish, and that Amanda is not even her real name. Amanda's original identity was Leslie, and the niece she claimed to have custody of is not apparently her niece, but her own daughter. She claimed she had custody of the girl because the child's mother was struggling with drug addiction, and her sister-in-law had passed away from breast cancer. Supposedly, she had custody of her niece for 2 years. He also said that he didn't go on a single date in 2 years because of Amanda.
And I tell you why it bothers me is because of Amanda James. Her real name is Leslie, lives in Pennsylvania. She told me her daughter was her niece. She told me she had custody of her niece because her mother was a drug addict and her sister-in-law died of breast cancer, and she had custody of her niece. For 2 years, I never went on a goddamn date because of that.
So he basically dedicated his time and life during those 2 years to Amanda James he's never met. Well, I suppose Amanda unknowingly saved some women from Lorne during those 2 years. The craziest part is that he still continued to talk to Amanda, or should we just call her Leslie now, even after knowing that she was a catfish. Not only that, he continued to talk to her for another 6 more months. At this point, he was just in need of a woman to talk to. Seems like he was doing it for the love of the game. So far, we know 2 women Lorne has been with, Paula and Leslie, and they both have mistreated Lorne, which definitely seems to have scarred him in ways you're going to watch in this video as we progress. However, so far Lorne sounds like a decent guy. Did his high school, joined the military, worked at different places, and had failed relationships. But this isn't why people despise Lorne. It's what was done to women online. Several women, several awful and nasty stories are the reasons why Lorne's locked up today. So it all started in 2004 when he decided to establish his presence more online to find someone since he was single. In 2004, Lorne decided to go through some country music chat rooms. Here, he didn't find girls of his own age. He simply went up online and started talking to girls. Underage girls. During this time, he was talking to 2 underage girls. Let's call them Chatroom Girl 1 and Chatroom Girl 2 for better understanding. Mind you, he was in his mid-30s when this happened. The conversations with Chatroom Girl 2 happened when she was 16, and he was more or less 34. A grown man who admitted online that he had a romantic interest in a girl less than half his age. However, this did not lead to anything as we started with something mellow. In one of the interviews, Lorne talks about Chatroom Girl 2 and about where he met her.
She was in Maine.
She was in Maine?
Her too. Yeah, she had a lot of problems.
And how did you meet her?
On the internet. She was in a chat room. I think she was in a country music room or a main room or something like that. It was 16. I think she was 16.
Okay. Okay.
And she was feeling really down about herself when I met her.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wanted her. And she kept saying she was ugly and all that. She showed me a picture of her, and I told her that I said, "You're not ugly." I said, "You're a beautiful girl." I said, "And there's some boy there at your school that likes you. They're just probably too shy to say it."
Mm-hmm.
I remember I said that to her, and we just became friends from there.
He said she was 16 and was going through a rough phase in her life. According to him, she felt really insecure about herself. He claims she told him that people at school called her ugly and that no one wanted her. He says she sent him a picture and he remembers telling her she wasn't ugly at all, that she was beautiful, and that there was probably some boy at school who liked her but just didn't have the courage to say it. From there, he describes their relationship as becoming a friendship. He insists there wasn't anything between them. In fact, he anticipates the obvious question. If he felt romantic toward her, why didn't it turn into something more? His answer is simple. They were just friends. But at the same time, he admits he wasn't the same person back then either. Well, their friendship just didn't end there, though. That is until about 3 years later, Chatroom Girl 2 showed up at his trailer one random day. According to him, she didn't come alone. She brought a friend. The two of them allegedly sat around for a while with him and one of his friends, both of whom were drunk at the time. After that visit, communication between them slowly faded. He confirms that he did meet her in person. He says she came over multiple times, around 19 years old at the time, and that they had been talking online for about 2 to 3 years before she ever showed up at his place.
Ever meet her?
I did.
Okay.
Her and her friend came over to meet me when there. It was actually
Came over to your...
Over to my house.
They went to your house?
Yeah, but I think she was like 19 at the time she came over.
So you talked to her for 2 years?
I think I talked to her 3 years, I think.
When asked what happened during those visits, he insists nothing significant occurred. He claims they mostly just sat around, talked for a bit, and then she and her friend left. He says she once brought a girlfriend with her, and again everyone just talked. He maintains that while he and his friend were drinking, the girls were not.
When she ended up coming over to your house,
Yeah.
what happened there?
I was drunk. We were drunk.
Okay.
She had a pregnant girlfriend with her, and we just talked.
Didn't you get drunk too?
No.
Oh, she didn't. The two boys were drunk and that was it.
Yeah.
According to him, her visit wasn't even planned. He says he had previously given her his address, telling her she could come by if she ever wanted to. One day, she simply showed up. At that time, he says they were still in contact, though not heavily, and not long after that, she reportedly moved away, possibly to Wisconsin or Montana.
So what made you want her to come over that night?
I didn't even know that she was coming over that night.
How did that happen then?
Her and her friend showed up.
Oh, you had given her your address
My
before?
address, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I told her if she ever wanted to come over, then she could. I gave her my address,
Okay.
and I guess she wrote it down.
And she just showed up one day, but you guys were still talking at that point.
Yeah, we were still talking at that point. We didn't talk much after that, because it wasn't long after that she moved out to Wisconsin or Montana, somewhere out there.
As for how he felt when she came over, he describes it as awkward. He says he didn't expect her to actually show up, especially with him already intoxicated. He recalls that they exchanged a brief hug, the kind you'd give a friend, and that was about it.
And then what were you feeling when she came over? I mean, did you want to kiss her or something? Like, you had already
gave her a
had
hug.
these... Okay.
I gave her a hug, she gave me a hug. I even gave her friend a hug.
Okay.
But I felt awkward, because I didn't know if she was going to show up, and me and we were drunk.
And that was what went down with Chatroom Girl too. If you find this alarming, just wait for Chatroom Girl 1's story, and things are just about to get worse from now on. When Lorne was talking to Chatroom Girl 1, she was only 15 years old, and this dude was pushing his 30s. The age gap alone was something so creepy as we skim through this case, because let's put it out there plainly. In no world is there a reason for a grown man to be having a friendship of any kind with a girl half his age, and yet here we are, witnessing Lorne shamelessly talking to a little girl. No law could justify this interaction as legal in any way otherwise.
How did you become friends with her?
I met her on the country music chat room. She was from Maine. They had country music chat rooms for every state. You go to different states, and they have country music chat rooms in every state.
He also met her in a country music chat room. MySpace was quite popular during the early 2000s. There were even state-specific ones. Maine had its own, and so did other states. You could hop from one to another, talking about music, artists, or just life in general. He says she was from Maine, and that's how the initial connection formed. From there on, things apparently moved quite quickly. After talking for what he describes as a brief period of time, the two of them began referring to each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. When interrogated about his interaction with an underage girl and claiming her to be his girlfriend, he starts to shift the time frame slightly. He says she was 15 when he met her, but 19 the last time he spoke to her.
Lorne, you were friends with a little girl on MySpace?
Well, she was 15 when I met her. She was 19 last time I talked to her. This is when I got incarcerated. Before that.
That distinction clearly matters to him. But the beginning of the relationship, the part that stands out, started when she was still a minor. When asked how exactly they became friends, he says they bonded over music. He sang, apparently, and she liked his singing. She was a big Kenny Chesney fan, and he would sing songs she liked. That was the hook, at least according to him. Music brought them together. It started casually. But at some point early on, the conversation turned toward trying to be boyfriend and girlfriend.
I'm just curious how the boyfriend and girlfriend situation came up between the two of you.
That was at the beginning.
How did that start?
Well, we started talking. It wasn't the first night. I don't remember exactly when, but I sang, and she liked my singing, and she's asked over ticket of Kenny Chesney. I used to sing songs that she liked. Because she liked Kenny Chesney.
He insists it wasn't immediate, as if that's supposed to make it any better. He claims it didn't happen right off the bat, but it did happen, and that's the key detail. A 32-year-old man and a 15-year-old girl are discussing being in a romantic relationship. When pressed about whether he told her he loved her during that time, he says not at first, but he doesn't deny that emotional language may have developed later. He tries to frame the relationship as different from other situations he's been questioned about. He says she talked to him about her real-life boyfriend, about her family, about her problems. According to him, she confided in him. He describes himself as someone she would go to when she was upset. Sounds like the textbook definition of to me. Being an adult, he strategically positioned himself as a supportive figure, a friend, and as someone who gave her a shoulder when she was upset. As a young girl, it would definitely seem comforting, but it is clearly Lorne taking advantage of her innocence. He claims himself to be a friend, but at the same time he acknowledges they were attempting to be boyfriend and girlfriend at the beginning, which certainly sounds contradictory. He argues that the conversations were completely different from other interactions he's had. He says this wasn't some shallow exchange. She had a life. She had real things going on. She talked about school, family issues, and relationship problems. He claims it wasn't just fantasy or role play, that she was a real girl with real experiences. According to him, the relationship lasted about 4 months in a romantic sense, but they continued talking for years, roughly 4 years in total if his timeline is accurate. He describes himself as a good friend to her over that period, and eventually they planned to see each other in person. Near the end of the first year they had been talking, the two of them decided they wanted to see each other in person. Not meet up in the traditional sense, at least that's how he describes it.
In the first year that we met. It was towards the end of the first year that we met. Tried to see each other, but I went up to see her, but I brought somebody with me.
According to Lauren, there was a state fair happening near her hometown. The idea wasn't to hang out. It wasn't to talk face-to-face. It wasn't even to interact physically. So he said this quote-unquote, we weren't even going to touch each other.
Well, there was supposed to be some fair going on or something like that. We weren't even going to meet. We just wanted to see each other. We weren't even going to touch each other or nothing. We're just going to see each other because we both wanted to know that we both existed.
The plan, as he explains it, was simply to verify each other's existence. They were going to go to the same fair, be in the same general area, and just look at each other from a distance. No touching, no conversation. Just confirmation that the person on the other side of the screen was real. He says he even brought someone with him. In his telling, that detail is meant to show there was nothing secretive or predatory about the situation. He claims it was mutual that she wanted to see him just as much as he wanted to see her. People obviously have their questions about how creepy it is for a man in his 30s to meet a little girl half his age. However, he pushes back on that interpretation. He insists it was mutual. He says they both wanted to confirm the other was real. In his mind, it was about reassurance, about proving neither of them was being deceived online. He labels it as caring. He says they cared about each other at the time. That's the word he keeps returning to, care, as if that alone justifies the situation.
Just because we cared about each other. At the time, we cared about each other. And we wanted to see that the other one was real.
Did she have concerns that you weren't real?
She had concerns at the same time that I did. My concern was because of what happened with Amanda James.
So after months of online communication, both Lauren and Chatroom Girl 1 had lingering doubts about each other's authenticity. She worried he might not be who he claimed to be, and he worried the same, partly because of a prior experience with Amanda James, aka Leslie, as we discussed earlier. To settle things, Lauren decided to make a trip to verify her existence in person. He brought along his friend Tony as a witness, a safeguard for his own protection. They drove 3.5 hours to the state fair near her hometown, a public place chosen deliberately for safety. The idea, according to him, wasn't to meet face-to-face in a private setting or do anything inappropriate. It was to confirm that the person he had been talking to online was real, and to have a trusted friend present in case any questions arose later about his presence. The plan, however, did not go smoothly. Chatroom Girl 1 got the date wrong. Lauren and Tony arrived a day before the fair was actually scheduled to take place. Since Lauren had to work the next day, he couldn't extend his stay, and as a result, the two of them never actually met in person during this trip.
Saw what happened.
I didn't see her.
Oh, she wasn't there?
No, she said the fair was supposed to be one day, but she got that day wrong. She asked me if I could stay another day, and I said no. I said I gotta work, so I never got to see her.
Oh, okay.
Despite the misstep, Tony reportedly spoke to her briefly on the phone during their visit. Tony had described her as a very nice and sincere person, someone who seemed honest and sensitive, but he also advised that Lauren should wait until she was 18 before pursuing any kind of relationship with her. Tony believed it would be safer and more appropriate to delay any in-person contact or a deeper involvement.
Okay.
Tony was the one that went with me. Tony thought that I should be waiting to talk to her until she was 18, but then he said that she seems like a nice person to be friends with. But he did say that he thought that I still should wait until she's 18 to talk to her, or to meet her.
Okay.
Not to talk to her, but to meet her.
Lauren claims that both he and Chatroom Girl 1 were actually aware of each other's ages at that time, and that is again not something one could use to justify pedophilia. Lauren claims that Tony's advice played a critical role in shaping the boundaries they would observe going forward. After the attempted meetup and the phone conversation, Lauren and Chatroom Girl 1 reportedly discussed the situation and agreed to wait until she was of legal age and out of high school before trying to meet again. The plan was to maintain a friendship while adhering to those boundaries. Over the next 3 years, from around 2004 to 2007, they continued communicating online. Lauren moved to Nashville during this period, and there were plans for her to visit him there after she graduated.
After she graduated, she was going to come out to Nashville.
Okay.
We had strong feelings for each other.
What does that mean?
Meaning, she was 18 when this was wrong, but when I was down in Nashville, she was going to come down to Nashville to see me, and we were going to try something then.
However, those plans never came true. Their online communication began to narrow down in the early September of 2007 and completely stopped by October the 18th of that year. During this period, the relationship remained entirely digital. The attempted in-person meeting and Tony's intervention seemed to mark a turning point in their interactions. While they had originally intended to meet at the state fair to verify each other's existence, the failure of that attempt, combined with the advice to wait until she was of age, kept the relationship constrained to online communication. Despite these boundaries, Lauren continued to describe her as sincere, honest, and sensitive. She was reportedly someone who confided in him about her life, her family, and her struggles. Even when advice was given to maintain distance, the digital friendship persisted for several years.
She was your girlfriend at some point?
No.
Okay. So then what was the stuff?
What was what?
What was the stuff? You said there wasn't a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we just talked a little bit. I showed myself to her a time or two.
When you were
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
that while you guys were talking about stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
At no point during this time did Lorne claim that any inappropriate interaction took place. The friendship remained primarily about checking in, chatting, and maintaining a connection across the digital space. Both parties seemed to understand and then accept the boundaries set by Tony's guidance and their mutual acknowledgement of age and circumstance. Well, you'd be wrong if you thought the conversations were just going on between the two underage girls and him, because during this time, Lorne was also in communication with another individual, referred to here as Kayla. While he spoke to Kayla occasionally, the interactions were limited compared to his ongoing communication with Chatroom Girl 1. The plan for her to visit was framed as a casual trip, not a romantic meeting, but rather an opportunity to see and verify each other's existence after years of online conversation. At this stage, there was no official boyfriend and girlfriend status. Any romantic label had faded over time, replaced by the uncertainty of trying to know each other better and navigating the complexities of an online relationship transitioning toward real-world contact. Even though they both had reportedly had strong feelings for each other, the interactions remained largely controlled and careful. Lorne has publicly claimed that he had romantic feelings for these young girls, and on multiple occasions engaged in explicit conversations with them. He also admitted to showing himself to at least one of the girls while though he framed these interactions as limited. The nature of these communications illustrates the dangerous imbalance in these relationships and highlights why they are concerning when considering the ages involved. Meanwhile, Lorne's online communications continued with Chatroom Girl 1. This was before they stopped talking in 2007. This was only the beginning of his relationship ordeal. There's more to go. The next one is one of the most important parts of the timeline. This happened in 2006 between a married couple, Betty and her husband Eric. Betty and Eric were an ordinary couple who lived in Rhode Island, and just like that, they decided they'd move to rural Maine for quite a more peaceful life. Well, that's where Lorne also lived at that time, as we know, and that's pretty much the beginning of the story. Initially, they moved their mobile home onto the property, intending to build a permanent house around it. As is often the case with construction projects, especially DIY heavy ones, the process quickly became complicated. Multiple workers were scheduled for different tasks, materials were ordered, and delays piled up, creating what Betty later described as a construction hell. The plan was ambitious, but simple in theory. They moved their mobile home into a large piece of land in Maine, with the intention of building a permanent house around it. The mobile home would serve as their temporary living space, while the construction slowly took shape. It was practical, it was cost-effective, and it seemed manageable. Well, at least it sounded like it was doable. However, things didn't remain the same. Construction projects have a way of testing patience, and this one was no exception. Lumber had already been ordered, roof trusses were delivered, materials were sitting on the property, ready to be used. There was a contractor involved, the same man who had moved the mobile home onto the site. He had experience. He had agreed to do the job, but he also had other commitments. He had other irons in the fire, other projects, other responsibilities, and as weeks passed, it became clear he simply didn't have the time to dedicate to Betty and Eric's build. Progress slowed to a crawl. Materials sat untouched. November crept in, and with it came the cold Maine weather, and we know how cold it can get in Maine and the other regions around it. At one point, someone did come in and at least close up the skirting around the mobile home so the pipes wouldn't freeze. That much got done, but that was about it. The larger structure, the real house, it wasn't moving forward. They were stuck in what can only be described as construction limbo. The couple needed help to manage the project, particularly for smaller tasks like hooking up a washing machine. After searching through the yellow pages, Betty found a local business called A One Septic Service and Construction. While the name sounded generic, it was local, convenient, and seemed capable of assisting with minor construction and installation tasks. What they didn't initially know was that the business was owned and operated by Lorne Armstrong. Lorne came to hook up their washing machine, and during the process, he struck up a conversation with Betty and Eric. He described himself as an experienced construction worker who had built houses before and seemed outgoing and easy to talk to. He was personable, chatty, and appeared confident in his abilities. He explained that he had experience managing construction projects, but had been too busy with other commitments to take on large jobs recently. Betty and Eric, impressed by his credentials and approachable nature, decided to hire him to help with the ongoing construction of their home. Lorne's initial involvement began quite casually. He was supposed to hook up the washing machine, but through conversation, he positioned himself as someone capable of handling larger portions of the project. He presented himself as a capable, reliable worker, and the couple, frustrated with delays from other contractors, welcomed the assistance. Over time, Lorne became more involved in the property, gradually taking on a more central role in the construction process. However, as he became more involved in the project, tasks that were supposed to be completed by other workers dragged on, materials were not installed as planned, and the pace of construction slowed. Lorne's presence, while initially helpful, eventually became a source of strain for Betty and Eric as they struggled to manage expectations, schedules, and outcomes. While waiting for the original contractor to clear his schedule, which never seemed to happen, Betty and Eric ran to another issue. A smaller one, but still important. They needed their new washing machine hooked up. Now, this might not sound like a big deal, but for Betty, It was. For years while living in Rhode Island near a lake, she had been without her own washer and dryer. She'd been making regular trips to the laundromat, so when they finally ordered a brand new LG washer set up for their new life in Maine, it felt like a milestone. A small luxury, a symbol that they were finally settling in. They flipped open the yellow pages, and that's when they found a business called One Septic Services and Construction. And of course, the guy who answered the couple's call was Lorne Armstrong. He swung by their property to install the washer. The job was straightforward. But while he was there, something else happened. He started talking, and he went on and on about a lot of things. Lorne, in general, was quite an outgoing man and a big chatter, at least according to how Betty described him during one of the instances. He struck up a conversation easily. He seemed comfortable, personable, likable enough. The kind of guy who could hold a conversation without awkward pauses.
Okay.
In the process of talking to him, because he was an outgoing person, he chatted very easily.
Yeah.
Seemed to be a likable enough person.
He was quite a prolific chatter, you might say.
Prolific chatter. You know what? I almost said that, and they said, no, I'm not going to say that. But yes, he was a prolific chatter.
Yeah.
During the installation, Betty mentioned the frustrations they've been having with their build, the delays, the contractor who couldn't commit, the materials just sat there while winter approached. That's when Lorne inserted himself into the bigger picture. He casually mentioned that construction was actually his background. He had built houses before, he said. He knew the work. He did septic and other jobs on the side. But construction, that was something he understood well. After he left, Betty and Eric talked it over. The original contractor had already admitted he was stretched thin. He had too much going on. He couldn't give them the time they needed. Winter was closing in, and they couldn't afford to keep waiting. So they made their decision. They called the original guy, confirmed he wouldn't be able to prioritize their project, and mutually agreed to part ways, and decided to hire Lorne. It started simply enough. He had materials to work with, lumber already delivered, roof trusses stacked and waiting. The groundwork had been laid. In theory, all he had to do was pick up where the previous contractor left off. But what Betty and Eric didn't know at the time was that this decision would entangle them in something far more complicated than delayed construction. When Betty told others that Lorne had their construction project done, she didn't get a very nice reply, for obvious reasons. Betty was new in town, and people weren't giving her a lot of info on what kind of guy Lorne was. Lorne was probably not the best guy, but he was surprisingly good at making a good first impression, and he did with Betty and Eric. Given the fact that Lorne strategically gained the couple's trust, the chances of them actually trusting other people's take on this are quite slim if you ask them, so they simply just rolled with it.
A couple of occasions when we told a couple of people in the area who was working on our house. One man said, well, first he rolled his eyes. That was his giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of went, which was another giveaway. And then he said, I said to him, what? Nothing. No, really, what? What? Is there something we should know?
Yeah.
He said, well, just watch him.
Regardless, the job moves forward anyway. Lorne shows up with his crew, which consists of his brother Paul and a friend named Tony. 3 grown men on a job that's supposed to cost $60,000. Right away, the dynamic feels off. Instead of a well-organized construction team, it's more like 3 guys figuring things out as they go. One of them cuts a single board, while the other 2 stand around watching, smoking cigarettes. There's no urgency, no coordination, just a lot of standing around. Then comes the lumber order. Betty, trying to stay on top of things, calls the building supply store with the materials list Lorne provided. She reads it off to the employee on the other end. The man pauses and asks, "What are you doing with this?" She explains it's for a roof on a new addition. That's when he drops the bomb. "Lady," he tells her, "it's going to rain in your house."
Mm-hmm.
But I had the list in front of me, and I read it to the man at the lumber store, at the building store, and he said to me, "What are you doing with this stuff?"
Yeah.
We're putting an addition on our home, our mobile home, and this is for the addition. This is for the roof. He said, "Lady, it's gonna rain in your house."
The materials Lorne ordered weren't suitable for what he was building. Instead of water and ice shield insulation, something designed to prevent moisture damage, he ordered a basic type that would absorb water like a sponge. According to the employee, once it started soaking up moisture, it would keep absorbing until it became so heavy it would rip loose and crash through the ceiling. For context, that is no ordinary mistake. Betty goes outside and asks the crew point blank if they've ever done this kind of work before. One of them admits he once put a roof on his uncle's barn. Not exactly reassuring when you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for a residential addition. And about that money, Lorne asked for half up front, $30,000. That's not unheard of in construction. Deposits happen. But then, not long after receiving the $30,000, Lorne asks for another $10,000 and Betty straight up refuses.
it was going to cost us $60,000. He wanted half up front. That's business.
Right.
That does happen.
Right.
That's not unusual.
Right.
So he got it. But then he wanted another $10,000. And I said, no. What did you do with the money that you already had? Well, I paid my workers, but they didn't do anything. He says, well, I trust them. And I said, well, I don't. I don't even know them.
When she asks what happened to the first $30,000, Lorne claims he paid his workers. That's a fair reason, but the work, however, wasn't half done. The visible progress on the house, it doesn't match the amount of money that's supposedly been spent. When Betty pushes back, Lorne says he trusts his crew. Betty's response is simple. She doesn't. She doesn't even know them. As the construction situation spirals, something even more devastating happens. Eric suffers a stroke. Not long after that, he had a heart attack. Suddenly, the house project becomes secondary to something far more serious. Survival. Eric spends extended time in the hospital. There are emergency procedures, including a defibrillator and a pacemaker. There's speech therapy. There are hospital transfers between facilities in Maine. For most of 2007, it's a cycle of hospital stays and recovery attempts. The stress is overwhelming. Betty is juggling everything, caring for Eric, managing animals at home, and dealing with a half-destroyed construction project that's bleeding money. Meanwhile, the work on the house slows, and eventually ceases to progress. After being confronted about the money and the shoddy work, Lorne and his crew simply stop showing up. They did not give the couple a heads up of any sort they disappeared. January 4th, 2007 marks the last day he ever works on that house. Betty tries to contact him. She reaches out to the district attorney's office. There's mediation. A mediator named Ian McKinnon gets involved. Lorne agrees, on record, to pay back $20,000. Mind you, that's not the full amount, but a merely reduced figure. He not only promised to give her half the amount, but also he did not promise that he'd actually get the work done. His work wasn't worth the originally paid amount either. In simpler terms, he just warmed the seats and got paid for it. Over the next several months, there are phone calls. At times, Lorne calls Betty crying, saying he feels ashamed, saying he's going to make it right. He talks about repayment plans. He makes emotional appeals. But the money never comes back in full, not even close. After about 5 months of pressure and follow-ups, Lorne does what he's going to make a pattern in his life. He runs. He leaves Maine and moves to Nashville.
It wasn't like we didn't try. We went to the DA's office. The DA contacted. They have a mediator. The man's name was Ian McKinnon. He told Mr. McKinnon that he definitely would pay us back. We agreed to take only $20,000. Pay it back. We were giving him a break because he didn't have no way did he do $20,000 worth of work.
Yeah.
And he said he would, and of course he did not.
Now, according to Lorne, this move is about chasing a dream. He claims he wants to pursue a country music career. He says he wasn't in the right frame of mind back home. He puts his septic company on hold. He sells his house for just $8,000, even though he reportedly had around $50,000 invested in it. He loses his truck to a mechanic. The truck story's another mess. Lorne takes it to a mechanic for repairs. The mechanic finishes the work and asks for payment. Lorne says he doesn't have the money, but offers to trade personal items, like a television, instead. The mechanic isn't having it. He knows who Lorne is. He keeps the vehicle. That's pretty much how Lorne's life in Maine collapsed. Not only that, but also how he scammed the couple new in town of $30,000 and fled town. So far, he's dated young girls, scammed the couple, and fled town. But if you think that's all he did, you'd be wrong. Remember how we initially discussed how he packed his bags and left for Nashville from Maine to create a singing career? Well, now that we know the actual reason behind his fleeing town. So what was he doing in Nashville, besides the fact that Betty was still in search of him, and he had no choice but to find a job in Nashville to support his living? He did end up finding a random desk job, but he ended up quitting it soon because he didn't enjoy his job. Also during this time, he was in contact with 4 different girls. Well, girls to him. However, they were perverted justice decoys in reality. Decoy 1, Kimmy Kimmy Coco Bop. Decoy 2, Disney Girl _13. Decoy 3, TD a Pet 13. Decoy 4, the important one, Kayla _Princess 94. The reason why I say Kayla _Princess 94 is an important one out of all the other decoys is that the conversations with the other decoys did not generally last very long. However, Kayla_Princess94, aka Kayla, lasted longer, and the longer it lasted, the nastier and creepier the conversations became. Also, Lorne seemed to be attached to Kayla the best, which explains the longer conversation part. The conversations that he had with Kayla will have you questioning if he actually was in love with Kayla, because the conversations get quite deep after a certain point, and you'll get to see it in just a bit. For context, during this time, 2007, Facebook was getting very popular. The more popular it got, the higher the number of predators became. So to eradicate potential predators online, the government and NBC decided to air a crime investigation and formatted show to catch predators. Adults who believed they were communicating online with underage children were invited to a house for a supposed meetup. What they didn't know was that the child was actually a decoy. The house was wired with cameras, and law enforcement officers were waiting nearby. One of the most infamous cases to come out of the series was the sting involving Lorne Armstrong. It was a part with the highest recorded viewership during that time. To understand the sting operation, it helps to understand how the show worked. The producers collaborated with local police departments and online watchdog groups. Adults posing as minors entered chat rooms and social platforms that were commonly used at the time. These decoys adopted the personas of children, often between 12 and 15 years old. Their profiles were intentionally clear about their age. There was no ambiguity. When adult users initiated conversations, the chats were documented. If the conversations turned explicit or suggestive, and if the adult attempted to arrange a physical meeting, law enforcement began building a case. Everything was logged. Every message, every explicit request, every plan to meet. Once a meetup was arranged, the adult suspect would be given the address of a house set up by the production team. Inside the home, hidden cameras were placed throughout the living room, kitchen, and entryway. A young-looking decoy, sometimes an adult actor, sometimes a teenage-looking staff member, would briefly greet the suspect at the door. They might say something casual like, "Hey, come on in," or "I made some cookies," just enough to establish that the suspect had shown up expecting to meet a minor. And then came the moment that made the show famous. Journalist Chris Hansen would walk into the room, and this was exactly what happened with Lorne Armstrong as well. Lorne's first encounter with Kayla happened in September 2007, when a 36-year-old man from Maine entered a Yahoo chat room. It started as a simple conversation, but things became so gross. Within the chat room, Lorne came across a profile under the name Kayla Marie Armstrong. The profile was explicit, and the girl was only 13 years old, a minor, legally protected, and far too young to be interacting with an adult in any personal or intimate capacity. Instead of disengaging, Lorne made a conscious choice to continue the conversation. At first, the dialogue seemed harmless. Casual greetings, small talk, and shared interests were exchanged, much like any typical online interaction might begin. But once he confirmed her age, conversation took a rapid and troubling turn. Within hours, Lorne began to exhibit what investigators later identified as behavior. He started by complimenting her appearance, calling her pretty and beautiful. On the surface, these words might seem innocent, but in context, they were carefully calculated to make a child feel special, seen, and emotionally validated, a foundational step in manipulative control. He then told her she seemed mature for her age. This comment was far from harmless. By implying that she possessed a level of maturity beyond her years, he was subtly blurring the boundary between childhood and adulthood, conditioning her to accept attention from an adult as normal or flattering. At the same time, Lorne began probing her home life, asking about her parents and whether they were often at home. These questions were strategic, designed to assess supervision and vulnerability, and to identify moments when he could interact with her without interference. Within the span of a single day, what began as casual online chatting had shifted into a calculated attempt to build trust, create dependency, and manipulate a minor. Each compliment, each question, and each seemingly innocuous comment was part of a carefully constructed process aimed at slowly lowering a child's defenses. This initial contact illustrates a chilling truth. Predators often operate subtly in digital spaces. They do not immediately reveal their intentions. Instead, they employ charm, flattery, and casual conversation to manipulate, making their approach appear normal and harmless, all while laying the groundwork for more serious. The initial texts were simply him introducing himself, talking about his niece, and more. However, even during that, he explicitly asked her age, to which she replied she was 13, for which he just said, "Wow, you're just a young one, huh?" Eventually, they saw that they each other's pictures, and he complimented, "Look at those big blue eyes. You're so cute, LOL." Mind you, he was talking to a 13-year-old, and in no world is there a need for a grown man pushing 40 to be complimenting a girl who's nothing but 13. He then proceeds to ask if she has boys going crazy for her at school, and this is what he said word to word, "I bet all the boys are after you at your school, huh? LOL. And he also proceeded to say, "I find it hard to believe that the boys at your school aren't all after you. You're a little doll." If that isn't already creepy, he also added that he'd also be into her too if she were just 5 years older. "If only you were like 5 years older, I'd be after you too, lol."